Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Recent video footage shows the movement of a large swarm of locusts filling the skies over Zhenjiang, China. Part of the plague has already ravaged millions of acres of crops across Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia. The UN issued a threat warning over a huge swarm of locusts that is migrating over Southwest Asia, prompting fears of potential crop losses. Keith Cressman, Senior Agricultural Officer for the UN, explains about the phenomenon.
This is a very rare phenomena, but once it does occur, it becomes extremely threatening to food securities, livelihoods, pastures, and of course, with pastures, if herders have to move animals into new areas, that this can be sources of conflict.
The migration has been traveling over Africa and substantial parts of the subcontinent. China continues to impose lockdowns on entire cities as it struggles to contain the coronavirus, raising further worries for the country's economic output and likely demand if the locust strikes. In an ancient mass grave in Athens, Greece, more than 80 shackled skeletons have been found. Archaeologists excavating the necropolis discovered the mass graves of 80 men's shackled remains. Some of the bodies were laid out neatly, while others appeared to be tossed in a pit. Analysis of the teeth indicate that the remains were of healthy young men. The head of excavation said they were all executed in the same way. It is not known who the men were, but scientists believe with testing they can determine how the men died. NASA has confirmed that SpaceX, with its Crew Dragon spacecraft, will soon become the first private company in history to launch astronauts to the International Space Station. The first manned test flight will happen as soon as this spring. Elon Musk previously revealed that the launch's working date is March 7th and will take off with veteran astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken on board. The Crew Dragon successfully completed a test flight to the ISS without astronauts on board in early 2019, spending a few days docked to the adapter before coming home. A UFO sighting was reported to MUFON over Disneyland Galaxy's Edge in Anaheim, California in January. A witness and his family were waiting in a group of about 20 people outside the lightsaber build shop. The group saw 6 bright lights flying overhead in random directions. The witness says, "We watched them move around for about a minute, and then 6 lights formed into 2 parallel lines. And then staying in formation, they drifted slowly, continuing northwest until they were out of sight." The witness reported they were 300 to 500 feet in the air. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I am your host, Joe Root, live on the Fringe FM. It is Wednesday night, February the 19th on into the 20th. And I apologize. I do see that the flyer that I put up said the 18th, Wednesday the 18th. So I know that could be confusing. But it's the 19th on into the 20th. And tonight we're here with a very special guest, Daniel Joseph. And the real question is that's on, I know a lot of your minds is, do you believe in angels? Do you believe in the story of Jesus? Like, what really went on there? And if you've kept up with this show, and if you've listened to Daniel Joseph, or you're a follower of the researchersoftruth.org, I think you might actually understand that there is a real story to this thing. At least I believe that. And if not, I think it's a good question to ask ourselves, do we believe in higher orders and angels and dimensions and things like that? So Daniel Joseph, author of Swimming with a Whale and from the Researchers of Truth, is with us tonight. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, to ancientlifeoil.com, getthetea.com, as well as Metaphorical Archaeology. Also, a shout out to UFO Seekers at UFO Seekers on Twitter and youtube.com/UFO Seekers. I'm kind of burning through this here because I really feel like, and I don't do this a lot, okay? Because I'm pretty, I guess, non-biased when it comes to certain things, but this is different for me, so I want to kind of burn through this here. So I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for them, okay? So if you happen to purchase anything from them, or if you just get the free pro bono session with Barbara, let them know that you came from here. Now, if you've never heard of Daniel Joseph, Daniel has been a lifelong seeker of truth, and his spiritual search began with a roar of awakening in college, which launched him on a 20-year study of Eastern and Western teachings, taking him into the far corners of the earth, always searching internally and externally for that which would unlock the deeper truth hidden in all the authentic spiritual systems. Now, 2 decades of searching produced a wonderful collection of extraordinary inner experiences, great spiritual adventures, and meetings with truly remarkable beings. But still, his search for pearls of spiritual wisdom continued until one day, without cost or much effort on his part, Daniel found himself on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus, standing at the doorsteps of Dr. Stylianos Atteshlis, also known as Daskalos, the Cypriot Master of Strovolos, who showed him the pearl of great value. And Daniel became like the man in the parable that says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man seeking goodly pearls, who when he had found one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Now, with great love and wisdom, Daskalos revealed the long ago promised keys to the kingdom of the heavens and provided training on how to use them. From that point on, Daniel's search for truth changed on the research of truth, and for almost 3 decades, Daniel has continued in an ever-increasing conscious engagement in this research and in sharing the great body of work of Daskalos and the Researchers of Truth. And he's written a few books, and I want to make sure I got this right, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. I really appreciate you being here, first and foremost. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate being here myself. It's nice to talk to all your listeners.
Yeah, it's really good to talk to you again. It's been a while, and you've written three different versions of Swimming with the Whale, and I also noticed that you just released another book on love too, right?
Yeah, they're not 3 different versions of Swimming with the Whale. There's Swimming with the Whale is a series, and there's going to be 4 books in it.
Okay.
I'm about to release the 3rd one next month. But yeah, the love book, it's an audio book. We just released that this month.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I'll leave all the links there too in the show notes, so you guys can go check that out, where those books are. I highly suggest you get them. Most of the stuff is on Gumroad. If you search Researchers of Truth on there, you can find it too. The websites for reference tonight is the researchersoftruth.org. You got researchersoftruth.net too, don't you? I believe, right?
It should have since last. So
yeah.
Researchersoftruth.org is just the long-standing research archive site. The researchersoftruth.com has all this other new stuff that we're coming out with now.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
.com. Yeah.
Okay, so tonight, while you're here with us for as long as we got you, I believe that you were wanting to share a message. And this is kind of what I do when you come on here. I just let you share the message that you want to deliver. And so we're all ears. If whatever you got to tell us about these higher orders, we'd love to hear it.
All right. Cool. Well, let's start at a point we all agree on. We're all living here in 3rd dimension. Yeah? Does anyone listening doubt that? Okay, if we're in the third dimension, it implies there's a first dimension and a second dimension, right? What are those dimensions? Well, the first dimension is just like a theoretical point. It's a point. No length, no width, no depth. Just a point. And, of course, there's no movement in this dimension. But we can't even say the first dimension is like a dot on a piece of paper, because even that dot on a piece of paper has length, width, and depth. In other words, the paper and dot itself is in the third dimension. So, it's in the third dimension. So the first dimension is really a hypothetical place. The second dimension is also theoretical because it only has length and width. The second dimension, it's like the first dimension in the sense that there's movement. However, movement can be represented in the second dimension. So, length and width, that's like a drawing. So we can have a drawing on a piece of paper like of a sailboat on waves with wind blowing the sails. And of course, the drawing has no motion, but it's representing the motion of a boat sailing, the waves and all that. But again, even the paper has width and thickness, so it's not really of the third dimension either. It's not of the second, it's of the third dimension. But when we get to the third dimension, now is where we really see movement. Everything has movement. Humans and animals obviously move, but can't walk like the humans and animals, but they walk, they grow. They grow upward, they grow outward, they have sap rising and falling. All that's movement. Movement is needed for life. So that just leaves the mineral kingdom, the crystals, the gems, the rocks. Are they living too, you think? Yeah, they're living, but not the kind of life humans do. And they're not living the kind of life plants and animals do. But again, the prime characteristic of life is movement. So we just can't even imagine life without some kind of movement. Try it. You just can't imagine it. All life has movement. There's movement even in the mineral kingdoms. The crystals grow, the metals like iron rust and decay away. There's great power, and as well as well-controlled power and movement in the stones. And the point I want to make is like the oldest matter we can get our hands on the planet. It's part of the universe. It's 4.5 billion years old. I have a piece of it. It was created at the same time the Earth was created. And that piece of matter has in it an incalculable number of atoms composed in it. Even a single grain of sand has more atoms than all the stars in the universe. In this little piece of matter that's 14.5 billion years old, in the atoms, and all those countless atoms, there are electrons that have been orbiting around the nucleus of that atom perfectly, without missing a beat, for 14.5 billion years old. Billion years. So all that's driven by the motion of life itself. The mineral kingdom is living. Everything is living and has movement. Now, it would be very convenient to think that since the third dimension has 3 spatial directions, length, width, and depth, the fourth dimension has 4 spatial directions, like length, width, and depth, and something else. That's about as far as from the reality as yet, because there are not any spatial dimensions at all in the fourth dimension. Because entering the fourth dimension obliterates space altogether. For example, in the third dimension, we can have 2 objects in the same location. But in the fourth dimension, you can have many objects that can occupy the same location without mixing up, because they exist together, and all at different frequencies. And the only way for us to really understand that fourth dimensional reality is by the example of a radio broadcast in our world. Wherever you are right now, you're in a room full of lots of different radio broadcasts and TV broadcasts. And they don't mix up. They don't mix up because they're at different frequencies of vibration. So each one of them maintains its whole uniqueness because of its unique frequency. Well, that's the way everything is in the fourth dimensional psychical world. And in the fourth dimension, the column still exists, but it's really different in time delineated by the clocks and calendars on Earth. For example, Daskalos used to talk about that. He'd be sitting there and, excuse me, he'd close his eyes, and for about 5 minutes or so, he'd open his eyes, and he'd say, I just gave a 2-hour lecture in the fourth dimension. So he was working in all the dimensions simultaneously, consciously. Now, we're all living in these dimensions simultaneously, but we're unconscious. And we can talk about that maybe on another program. But so hours could just seem like 5 minutes of Earth time. And then people who are in the shell held in the fourth dimension, until they die physically, you go into this fourth dimension, and you take with you all your concepts, all your feelings, all your thoughts, all your interests in everything. So what you do there is you create a shell world for yourself based on all your feelings, desires, interests in life. So instead of this sense of space like we have on Earth, we have this fourth dimension, and it's a world of place. A world of place. Now, what's that mean? Everybody listening tonight is located at some measurable geographical point on Earth. But at the same time, this space gives everyone this sense of place. Their home, their office, their car, wherever they're listening right now. Wherever you are, it's the sense of place that's most important to you. You don't care about some mathematical number of where you are on the Earth. You care about the place you're in on Earth. And so in the fourth dimension, we don't lose this sense of place, or the sense of space. But then leaving the fourth dimension, we enter the fifth dimension. Now we start to lose the sense of time as we know it. There's still experiences of past events, but time loses its meaning because we're approaching the threshold of the eternal now, which is the seventh dimension. And what can be said about the seventh dimension? What words from any language can convey the meaning about the seventh dimension? Those precious few masters like Daskalos and others that have touched this dimension have no real words to describe it. Sure, they can say, oh, it's magnificent, oh, it's splendid, it's glorious. But those words don't convey much meaning about those who have not experienced this level of reality. So let's just kind of relate where these dimensions are and these worlds of existence are, these higher worlds. Well, certainly the third dimension is the entire material world. So when we say the material world, we mean our planet, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, everything in the entire universe is the material world. There's no subplanes in this world. It's just one material world. And that's the third dimension. Now, the fourth dimension is the entire psychic world, or astral world, as the Hindus called it. The fifth dimension is the entire noetical world, or mental world, as the Hindus called it. Now, as personalities, we live in these multi-layered worlds of existence. The three worlds of existence are the material, psychic, and elemental. These universes are worlds of space, time, and place. Although these worlds coexist in parallel and are intermingled, they exist together at unique, different rates of vibrations. Just like I mentioned before about the difference about the vibrations is what keeps the consistency of the plane itself. The material universe, like I said, everything in the material universe is what we're calling the material world. And everything in it. And it is operating in conditions of both space and time.
Now, Daniel, just to, I don't mean to cut in on you a little bit, but you're kind of breaking up the signals. Kind of, I don't know if it's the signal or what, but I think I understand what you're saying. So so a lot of us have experiences with the fourth dimension. Whether is that kind of like the astral realm, or when we have, like William Buhlman talks about, when people have out of body experiences, or after they die, they kind of go to this reality that they're used to, so to speak, and then. They move on from there.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, the created shell world that people are creating by their thoughts and feelings. That's where they go when they pass over, and that's where you go when you go sleep. Your physical body is laying on the bed, someplace south.
Okay.
But each of these worlds has different laws governing. Laws of physics, such as gravity, inertia, and cohesion, regulate matter and our physical life on Earth. And we learn about the laws of matter and world and how to live in harmony with them in childhood. But we're just not inhabitants of the material world. We're simultaneously citizens of these higher worlds. And we have the higher bodies corresponding to these worlds that coexist within and around our material body. Now, the average person, they're not aware of the psychical and noetical bodies. They're not aware of higher worlds or their higher bodies. Even though they're expressing thoughts and emotions subconsciously, they're not aware that these are real forms that exist in these psychonoetic worlds. Every time you have a thought about something, you're creating an elemental. It's a thought form, and it has a real living existence. Now, we can't see them here on Earth, but we can feel them. When somebody sends you a bad vibe, you're feeling these elementals coming off the person. Well, in the higher worlds, those elementals materialize as people, places, and things. So we're the ones creating the heavens or hells we go to, like that. So, for decades, Daskalos described these and other planes of existence and the laws govern them in detail. Many decades ago, he said that science would eventually discover these other dimensions, prove their existence, and in the process, call them universes. Now, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something, 15 years ago, scientists started doing exactly that. Theoretical physicists from Stanford University published research on what they were calling parallel universes and said the same thing that Daskalos said. These universes coexist simultaneously with the material universe. So what we're seeing here with that is orthodox science tends to dismiss, even ridicule the findings of mystical research, yet mystics have always described the realities that scientists later find out with their own methods, and eventually embrace as true. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I think if, all the stuff about the nerves and the blood and the body, the Chinese mystics knew it, the Hindu mystics knew it long before Western science discovered it. So really, we can take a lot of guidance in what we're going to discover next in the scientific world, or we could say, by what mystics have already discovered. So many researchers in the past and today have experienced these higher planes of existence, these parallel universes. The fourth dimensional psychical counterpart of Earth is within and extends for thousands of miles around the Earth. This means that the psychical counterpart of Earth does not touch the psychical counterparts of the other planets. So during an out-of-body experience, or after the change called death, when we pass into the psychical counterpart of Earth, we're never going to leave the planet. We're just the psychical counterpart of the planet. So that's all you do. You just simply leave your material body behind, take all your interests, your way of thinking, your name, and you enter the psychical planes and continue on with your life as it was when you died. Now, in his classes, Daskalos also declared, no human being with a psychical body can leave the psychical counterpart of the planet. That's definite. And if people say they've gone to other planets or come from other planets in their psychical bodies, they're an illusion. They're mistaken, he said. Because after the second death, after death, we find ourselves in our psychical body in the psychical plane, the fourth dimension. But after the second death, which mentions in the Bible, we find ourselves in the noetical plane, in the fifth dimension, living in our noetical body. And just as this psychical part is in and around the planet, so too the fifth dimensional noetical part of Earth is in and around our planet. But it extends much farther beyond Earth than the psychical counterpart. In fact, Earth, with our entire solar system, is suspended in this vast noetical universe. And because of this, it's possible to travel between planets. And I don't just, our solar system only is suspended in noetical universe. All the solar systems are suspended in the noetical universe. And that's how the travel takes place. From the noetical counterpart of Earth to the noetical counterpart of another planet in our solar system or another solar system. All that's possible in, I'll say, times like minutes as measured on Earth. And Daskalos confirmed, and we have other confirmations on this, that this is the method used by extraterrestrial intelligence when they travel. That's why time and distance are not a limitation for them when they're traveling. And something else that he told us that I think is extremely interesting. He said there were about 60 visitors from other planets, not just intergalactic visitors from other planets, not other galaxies, but from our galaxy. He said about 60 of them are coming here. And he said he was in contact with most of them. And they come for different reasons. One, they kind of wake us up to realize, well, I'm not alone. Look at all this stuff happening. They're raising questions in our mind. So we're learning all the time. And that's one of their duties, is to, they show up, they disappear, they move fast, they turn at right angles. All that's just for us. So we'll start asking questions. What the heck's going on? And obviously the conclusion is we're not alone. And if you look at some of the ancient leadings of visitors in the past, it's clear we did not know how to do that. We do not know how to do that now. Some of the great stone things I'm talking about. That's another way. They put questions. They do things that make us question reality and the nature of reality and our place in it. So,
but why? Just real quick, Daniel. Why don't they? I think a lot of people just want to know why. And I'm glad you're talking about this, by the way, because I know it's kind of complex. But why don't they just show up and just talk? I think a lot of people want to know that. Like, why are they just kind of leading us along, so to speak?
They're not. No, they're under laws. These guys are self-realized. We're talking about looking for self-realized masters on the planet. These guys are already self-realized. So there's nothing as a limitation for them, really, in terms of traveling or what they can do. They are really at a place we can't really understand the way where we are right now. Just think about it. If it was a planet, 1 million years older than Earth, it was 14.6 billion years old. Mm-hmm. Well, where will we be in 1 million years? I mean, will we really need ships?
Right.
That's what's always said. The extraterrestrials, they're extraterrestrials, but the ships aren't. They make the ships when they get here. They materialize. That's just materialization. They can materialize a body, and they can materialize a ship. Some of them use ships, some of them don't. Some of them don't need to use ships. But in the case, why aren't they telling us, here we are? There's one really big reason and a secondary reason. The big reason is the first gift God creates to any of the beings is free will. So we're not really allowed to interfere with the free will of others. Now, these guys, of course, we do, because we're still in ignorance down here, but these guys are enlightened, so they will not violate the prime law of free will. So they've come to Earth. Well, they've talked to our government. The government says, don't show yourself. This is our planet. You can't come and do this. It's breaking the free will issue. So they do that. But again, their primary mission is just to raise questions in everybody's mind. And finally, we're going to demand from our government for them to tell the truth. From all these governments, all governments know about it.
Yeah, right.
One day, it'll just be too much, and the need for truth will force that disclosure.
Fantastic. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break here. I'll try to shorten it up as fast as I can, and we'll be right back, guys, with Daniel Joseph.
Of your mind, it's Light in the Void with Joe Root.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of GI Joy at getthetea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's getthetea.com.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
All right, so we're back with Daniel Joseph, and just so you know, I know some of you are probably worried about the signal, but Daniel's on his phone, and I assure you we've got the best signal that we can get. So if something isn't clear, I'll re-ask the question here. But yeah, so I appreciate you talking about that, because I know one time you were on the show, Daniel, and I asked you about, the ET thing, and I think I probably asked it wrong. And what I was trying to figure out is what, people sometimes wonder, are they the same thing as angels? Are they something entirely different, And I think that's what I should have asked.
Oh, no, they're not angels. Yeah, they're not angels. They're the way this works is God is, we call God absolute infinite beingness, as different people have in the past, because God itself is composed of an infinite number of absolute eternally beings. These are spirit beings. And when they start to express themselves, they pass through archetypal ideas. And the first idea they pass through is the archetypal idea of an archangel. So they become archangels. Some of them stop there and just serve as archangels. But that ray continues on in others and passes through a human idea, the human idea. And we become humanized. Those spirit rays become humanized. And that's what these extraterrestrial are. They are just human beings that have evolved so much farther than we have, that we can't even recognize them as human beings. But forget about the reptilian thing, but they have the same thing as the human form. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 heads. Okay, they look different, but that's the human form, the 5 points. 5 points of the human idea. So these are fully humans. They're not archangels. They continue on themselves, world distance. The archangels stay in realms of beingness. They work in these worlds, but they really are stay at one within the realm of beingness, which is the eternal now. So they keep their oneness, but they also serve in the worlds of existence. Hard to explain, but
sure.
Anyway, the extraterrestrials are not them. They're us who just. When you think about these guys, this is what we're going to be in the future. When they look at us, this is what they were in the past. That's kind of cool. So, all these amazing things they're going to do, we as a race will do. It's all the stuff we see about them that's disappearing, the ship turning, all that special stuff, that advanced stuff that they have and are. We will do that as well, and more. So it's a big story.
Yeah, it's like
a good story.
Far past the advanced. It's pretty advanced stuff, I would think. Because your first teachings, we kind of learned about the ethereal body and kind of meditations and introspection and things like that. And I think a lot of people are just having, they're having out of body experiences. They're having bigger experiences, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I started having these things when I was 7, and teenagers, and in college, I was having these things going into my etheric level. Had no idea what was happening, and it wasn't. And then I studied and had out-body experiences, samadhi, all kinds of stuff before I met Daskalos. But I didn't really understand where I was and what was actually happening. I knew what the words were, but I didn't really understand the mechanics of how it happened. But when I met him, not only did he train you how to do it, he explained what was really happening, where you were, and what was going on with any of these, out-of-body experiences or telepathy or ESP or any of that stuff.
So I've read books on, like, I guess from the Theosophical Society and other schools, and they talk about these rays. Is that the same thing? Like when they talk about the green ray, the blue ray, or the seventh ray kind of thing?
Oh, no, that's a little different. And what they're talking about are the rays, but they're not the spirit ray of an individual. But there are these 7 rays. And why are there 7 rays? Well, if you take a prism up and hold it in the sunlight, it takes white light and causes 7 different colors to appear. Now, we all know those colors were in the right white light to begin with, right? So, 2, God's will pleasure acts like a prism, and some of these spirit rays come through this, and they become the ray of an archangelic order. And it's just the same thing. Each of these archangelic orders has a color from the spectrum of the rainbow. The Michaels have the red. The Raphaels have the violet. The Gabriels have the sky blue. So it's the same kind of thing. It's a principle, and we're seeing it demonstrated in that spectrum coming off the prism. And the spectrum is a Latin word. It just means appearance. So these colors appear from the white light. In the same way, these beings appear from the oneness of God. And then you have all these, then they classify themselves in different orders, and some of those are in charge of certain rays.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I think like people are just trying to know, what are angels basically, because we, in every, I guess, mystical system, it doesn't matter east or west, everybody seems to be talking about angels now. Like we know there's angels, right? It's just like we just don't know what they are,
Well, they've known what they were for a long time. I mean, the Egyptians talked about them. The Aztecs talked about them. The Hindus. I mean, almost everybody's talked about them. Sometimes they would call them different name, and like Gandharvas, I think they call them in Buddhism or something. But anyway, yes, these are real entities. These are not some mythological story, some stupid fairy tale of a kid or anything. These are real beings, and they give you real help. Now, right now, when you hear about it, it sounds theoretical. It sounds theoretical to me, too, first. But then when you start trying to approach them and talk to them, they will talk to you. They will answer you. They will give you information that you could not have gotten any other way. In fact, that's what Daskalos was always telling us. He said, you don't need a master. You have your own guardian angel and these other angels that travel with you. And they're allowed to tell you more than any earthly master can tell you, because an earthly master could make a mistake. He may not miss something about you, but an archangel knows everything about you. So it's not possible first of all, it's not possible for it to make a mistake, because it's never come out of its oneness with God, even though it's extending its hands down to human beings who have phenomenally gone out of the oneness with God. So yeah, they're real entities, and you get real help from in there. And it's quite honestly, Joe, it's just like making a friendship with anybody. When you first meet somebody, how are you doing? You exchange some words. The next time you talk some more, you reveal a little bit more about yourself. They tell you more. And pretty soon a friendship develops more and more and more. And it's exactly that way with an archangel. They'll come and they'll a little bit at first, but the more you really try to develop that relationship with them, they're happy to have it. Can you imagine? They're doing all this work for us, keeping our bodies in good health, and guardian angels protecting us from dangers and everything. And who even thanks them? Who even thinks about it? So if you start to understand who they are, and you can study many different systems that talk about them, I believe our system has the most information. Daskalos revealed more than anybody else, and he said he was going to, and he did. But they are real experience. I mean, you just have to have your own experience, and then I don't need to explain anything in words. You'll know from your own direct experience.
Yeah, and you can feel it too, kind of, right? Like, I've had moments where I feel like, oh, this is crazy. I'm talking to myself, but then I would ask a question and be like, are you trying to talk to me or something like that? And get really emotional and think, okay, like super emotional, teary-eyed and stuff. And I'm like, they are, and it's something is trying to talk to me. So, I mean, is there a way that we can, I guess what you're saying is the more we work on this relationship with our guardian or our holy guardian angel or our guardian angel and then the archangels, the more they're going to communicate, the more we'll get to know them, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the guardian angels attuned it completely in one with our soul as well as our personality. The other archangels are just attuned to us, and so they're not in one with us, but they know everything about us. I mean, I shouldn't say they're attuned to us. They attune to our bodies and work in our bodies. But as far as our personalities, the archangels don't really like to be around human personalities because they have a smell to them, and that smell is our negativity, our negative thoughts and negative feelings. It creates an odor to them. So we have to go to them, and they're so happy about us trying to get out of negativity and into positivity and reach up. They're so happy to hear and feel our approach. And they're not going to ignore you. I mean, but one thing you have to know about this, when you start talking with your guardian angel, trying to develop a dialogue with angels, you've done two things. You put yourself in danger because immediately your own egoism wants to masquerade as this guardian angel. So if you start listening to him, you have to start developing discernment very carefully because your own egotism will jump in and tell you something. Now, how are you going to know the difference? Well, the egotism is always telling you something you've already heard, you've already thought of. It's an elemental. So if you hear something you've already thought you knew or that you believe or you've said or heard somebody say, be careful of those because the guardian, when he talks to you, he doesn't talk in long sentences. They're in very succinct words, and man, are they just pregnant with power and meaning. So we just have to be careful as we start to develop dialogue. We're not being tricked by our own egotism. And, one thing another test you can tell is the guardian angel or any angel, they can point out your faults without ever putting you down, without ever making you feel guilty, without blaming you or blaming it. They'll never blame you. They'll never blame anybody else. So if you hear a voice that starts to make you feel bad about yourself, it's the wrong voice. Don't listen.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense, right? Because they're only going to tell you newer and higher things more than likely. Right? Is that what you're saying? Or maybe... See,
yeah,
I think sometimes,
they can't tell you stuff.
I think I know what you're saying. Sometimes we want to confirm our own truth,
That's right.
And maybe we're wrong.
Right. So you have to be careful because the false voice it's going to be a battle for a while for anybody on the spiritual development path because we have an adversary, and that adversary is our own egoism, and it likes to distract us, lie to us, keep us standing still because if we go forward, that egotism gets brought down. It knows it. So its job number one is to keep us from going forward. So it wants to distract us in worldly things, make us look outside all the time, not inside. And if you can pass through, it's a great reward. You'll find who you are and who you aren't. You're not the egotism. The egotism is a shadow of the real you. So all this process, everything we do, eventually, slowly just takes down the faces of egotism until you have a purified personality, and that means the self-realized personality.
Gotcha. Okay, I think I understand.
That's the end.
So how far can we go up in these dimensions in our human body? Can we go all the way to the seventh and still come back to our body? I mean, is that possible? I know it's not something we should strive for, but I'm just wondering if it's even possible.
Yeah, it is possible. You can touch it, but you can't live there and be in a material body. And I'll tell you a little bit. So we have this first layer of incarnation, this first level of incarnation goes on forever. It goes from us being cavemen till we become self-realized, right? And that's a big, long process. But even when we get self-realized, we touch that state, but we don't stay there. we could go on, and we theoretically have the right to go on because we've purified our personality, we burn up all our karma, we've done everything, we've completed it, but we don't get to spike the ball because there's so much suffering down here.
Right.
And so we become like Marines, like no man left behind. Because once you reach that state, every human being is you, or at least your brother and sister, you can feel. And you don't want to leave your brother and sister behind suffering in this horrible place, right? I mean, it's a beautiful place, but there's a lot of horrible suffering goes on through our incarnations on Earth. So the first thing the self-realized person does is come back. And he live just like everybody else, look like everybody else. They pay taxes. They don't get to use these higher powers from this for self-realization because nobody could understand them if they were using the super senses and just thought projection and they have to use words again. But somebody self-realized doesn't have to use words, so they forego their liberation for the sake of everybody else. Now, this is, in the East, they call it a bodhisattva. But in the West, we call them brothers and sisters of mercy because they don't take liberation until every human being on Earth, healers, that means the worst of the worst, reach their self-realization. So you have these beings who get self-realized, they come back, and they help others get self-realized. And then they come back, and it starts to grow, and pretty soon it becomes exponential. The last portion on Earth starts to accelerate really fast. The first ones are just mind-numbingly slow. Thousands of these instinctual incarnations.
Now,
thousands of...
You're breaking up pretty bad there, Daniel. Are you saying, what are you saying that accelerates pretty fast? I apologize.
Oh, no, it's my connection maybe. I'm just saying that as people start to get self-realized, they don't leave the planet. They don't go back to the Godhead. They could, theoretically, but they don't because they don't want to leave anybody behind. It's like if you were in your house and a flood came and you ran upstairs, but your child was downstairs, you would not stay upstairs. You would come back down to get the child. Right. So that's what the self-realized do. They come back. And as that starts to happen, more and more people get self-realized. So more and more self-realized people come back to the planet, which helps other people get self-realized faster. And pretty soon the whole process is an acceleration, an exponential growth kind of thing. So the last phases of our incarnations move pretty quickly compared to the first.
So are you saying that there are people that are walking among us right now that are pretty much self-realized, that know all this stuff already?
Absolutely. There's maybe every generation, one or two becomes self-realized. It's still very, very slow right now, considering, 7 billion people, but slowly over time that accelerates. And this is a moment of acceleration right now because there's a lot of silly stuff on the internet, but there's a lot of really new teachings that are being brought out, fragmented. Daskalos brought this one out and all this out in a collection of systematized information so that people can use it to reach the state themselves. But this information helps people accelerate their evolution faster.
Sure, right. Now, I appreciate you answering that. So, like, when some people have experiences when they're a child, for instance, like I know somebody that had an experience as a child and says they saw an angel, and the light color, because I asked them, I said, what color did you see? And they told me, well, it was more gold. I mean, is that kind of how you tell who you're dealing with or what you're dealing with is based on the color of the light?
Sometimes, yeah. But, they can use all they want. They can take any form they want. Sometimes they'll show up as a dog. Sometimes they'll show up as an owl or something. And they do that so as not to draw attention and excite things, but they're doing it to bring a message or guide somebody somehow. But
so they show up as owls and dogs and just kind of.
They can.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
There's been people saved by dogs. All of a sudden, a dog runs out of nowhere, grabs a drowning kid from a pond and pulls him out and disappears. What happened, really?
Right.
Well, it's not more than just a dog sometimes. Most of the time, I would say.
So that's the whole angels unaware thing that the Bible talks about, right? Because when it says there's angels amongst us unaware, that's pretty much what it is. Because I think we've all had those experiences. A lot of us have.
Mm-hmm. And then, usually it's easy to have them as a child because you haven't been totally brainwashed by society yet and beat out of you that there's anything other than the material world. That's the whole point. Nobody even thinks about it once you get older because you've been told, oh, forget about that. That's nonsense. The only thing that's important is more, as much as you can possess and as much as you can do. That's the value in life. But that's not the value in life. We've been lied to. And I think if we look around at our systems, and I mean government, religion, business, they're corrupt. They're lying to us.
Yeah.
That's not the value in life. And, we have enlightened ones from all cultures and all times, always coming to earth saying, no, that's not the value. Look in, find the God in you, find the truth in you.
So is there something that maybe like where we are as far as a planet goes? Because there's a lot of really scary stuff going on right now. And a lot of us think that we're, there's a massive spiritual evolution going on. But at the same time, we hear about all these bad things that are happening, like viruses and plagues and stuff. And it's like, are we at a stage in this planet where things are speeding up, so to speak? Or have you heard it?
Oh, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Things are speeding up. Everybody knows it. You can feel it. And, it's a point, I would say it's like this. We're on a balance point right now. And how we choose right now is going to determine our destiny, of course. But it's almost as if the acceleration, the quickening thing, is starting to really polarize the planet. You have the forces for good, human rights, save the planet. And then you have all these other forces that are trying to destroy things and take them down. This is our time, and by ours, I mean the life stream called human beings, to choose what's value, what's the real value. And I think what you're seeing is just the struggle, the light and the shadows here as we're trying to be reinvested tremendously. We'll get through it. It's destined for man to get through it. How long it takes, how much suffering he has to go through, that's up to us individually how we choose that. So the race will go as fast as we choose it to go. And at this phase, most people on the planet, virtually all people, not just a lot, but virtually all, are in the second level of consciousness. There's 5 levels we have to go through. The first one is instinctual. That's the caveman. He's living in a cave. He's, got a club. He's killing animals. He's protecting himself. All he's thinking about is shelter, sustenance, sex, survival.
Right.
Just the sleep. And 5 basic principles. That's all he is. It's the same thing an animal's doing. So, but then what happens? He gets in there and some animal bites him or whatever. He has an experience. He starts to think. And slowly, he starts to develop his mind to think better. He thinks, oh, okay, well, instead of a club, I'm going to get a stick, a long stick, and put a sharp, pointed rock on the end, and that'll keep me better. He's thinking. So that process takes him out of the instinctual phase. He stops just reacting like an animal. He starts to think, but he moves into the subconscious phase. He's not in an awakening phase. He's in the subconscious phase. And that's where most people are right now on Earth, because we're just subconsciously living, It's like, and we don't think for ourselves. We let our government leaders tell us what the truth is. Other people tell us what the truth is. Christ said, seek the truth will set you free. He didn't say seek others who tell you the truth and believe them. No, he wants everybody. We should all find the truth for ourselves. So there's just a lot going on right now, and we have to choose which camp we are in. And I really love this story. And I know it's a Christian story, and maybe people are turned off by the way Christianity has been presented. But nonetheless, Christ taught the truth. And he's at the ends of times. When the king comes, he's going to separate the people of the earth, all the nations, like a shepherd separates goats and sheep. And he'll say to the ones on his right, come, my blessed ones, receive your gift. It was prepared for you from the foundations of the world. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was sick, you visited me and cared for me. And when I was in jail, you visited me. And they say to him, when, Lord, did we see you in jail or naked or hungry and do these things for you? And he says, if you've done it to the least of the my brethren, which means any on earth, you've done it. And he says, go over me, cursed ones. Whatever you did for me, you didn't give me drink. When I was naked, you didn't give me clothes. You didn't care for me. And they say, well, when did we see you like this, Lord? And he says, whatever you didn't do to the least of my brethren, you didn't do to me. So this whole ends of time things, and who knows? I mean, I shouldn't say who knows. I should say, doesn't it seem like we're kind of close to the ends of times? It's been prophesied by all these scriptures in the past.
Yeah, it does to me.
I mean, look what's happening. I believe we are in the ends of times, as was foretold. And I know I'm quoting Bible too much probably tonight, but, in the book of Daniel, he said the ends of time are going to come when knowledge is greatly increased. Well, everybody with the internet has access to knowledge like they never did before. I think that's a pretty clear sign that we're in those times now. And this time is rough, but everybody has to choose. Everybody has to choose which side they're on, what they're going to go with. You're going to go with, okay, the meaning of life is every man for himself to get the most possessions they can get, to get the most money, possessions. Or are we supposed to care about others, help everybody else? That's really, it boils down to just that. Is it going to be selfish or selfless? And that book on love that we were just talking about, the audiobook, it's on the researchersthetruth.com site. It goes through there, and it goes through all the gradations, all the multicolored human love, from the most selfish to the most unselfish. And it's a real study. It's a real study. And, you'll have to think, what are you doing on it? Well, I have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Are we really achieving what we our highest good, or what we even want in life?
Right. Yeah, I think we got to develop to learn to listen to this voice. That's something I'm starting to learn. Is like, I keep going after this, these things that I know that aren't good for me, and you got that voice deep down that's telling you like you need to move past this, right? And until you listen, you just keep going through these cycles. I think it's time we listen to it.
That's exactly right. And one thing the Guardian will say, and he says this to everybody, and you're thinking, okay, what I need is a radio station, I need all this equipment, I need all this stuff. And then you'll go through the whole desire thing of desiring all this big thing. And then this still small voice inside will say, and then what?
Right, yeah.
Well, then I want something else. And somebody, okay, then what? And you go through, maybe, I don't know how many lifetimes of doing this before you finally realize, is what I want really the best thing for me?
Right.
Is what I want in line with my spiritual aim in life? You have to ask yourself questions like that at some point.
Yeah, those
and
are
the answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
They're going to be no. I'm not always doing that.
Right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Daniel. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And I'm probably going to play some more clips where I did talk to you here. But is there any a last message that you want to give us before I let you go?
Well, let me think here. It's enjoy your life. This is, it's serious. And we have to do the right things. We have to overcome the egotism and all those kind of things. But really, you can't hate life. You have to love life, because we are life. We're living, but when we're not living in a material body and we're at spirit, we are life itself. So, whatever your life is, whatever you're facing in life, you need to trust yourself. You need to trust life, because it sounds like, we've got to go through all this. We've got to figure this out. There's all these dangers. We're not going to make it. This is going to happen. But life itself is the accelerating force that's lifting our evolution up. It's what encourages you to sit down and meditate. It's what encourages you to study a book about, let's study something about, whether it's spiritual thing or something noble in the material world. There's something in us that's drawing us up, and we should try to become more and more aware of that and follow that lead, because it's in us. It is us.
Well, thank you for that, Daniel. I really appreciate you coming on the show again. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, Joe. It's nice talking to you again, too.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. More Lighting the Void. You have a good night, too, sir. More Lighting the Void coming up.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves stripped bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts. Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas. The Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tisi. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's FRINGE at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and I heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
So I want to thank Daniel Joseph for coming on the show. I know that the connection got just a little choppy there, and I apologize about that. So what I'm going to do in the spirit of the Researchers of Truth is play some stuff that when Daniel used to come on here. And the reason why I really want to share this with you is because there's a couple of things in my life that really ring true to me. And like I said, I don't really, as far as spirituality goes, I'm pretty non-biased. I guess I don't really push to one system or the other more. I guess I don't know why this system rings more true to me, but it just does. It always has. And every time that I've ever practiced anything that Daskalos teaches or Daniel It's always came out to be exactly what they said it is. So some of the websites are the researchersoftruth.com, researchersoftruth.org. You can look up the whale.us for the book, for Daniel's book. But if you go to online, there are some books that Daskalos read or that wrote that I think some people are really trying to take advantage of these teachings and how sacred they are. Like if you go on Amazon, someone's selling the esoteric practices for like, I don't know, $2,000 or something. I think it was like $1,000 or something online. But if you go to the store and I'll have to give the link for the store. I think it's at the Stoa Lessons. I'll have to look it up. Researchersoftruth.org. Yeah, you'll get it. You can get the book for normal price, a normal price book. You don't have to pay $1,000 for it or anything like that. So, so I want you guys right now, first, before you get into this section of it, is like to think about this thing, baptism. And everybody knows that baptism or that ceremony was something that usually we understand to be introduced in the New Testament by Jesus. But what does it really mean? Like, what's it really all about? And if you think about the glyphs of fire and water, then you'll kind of understand it as it comes together, or what we know as the Holy Hexagram or whatever. Now, but there's not just a baptism of water and baptism of fire. So it's been a while since we've talked about these kinds of things, and I'm going to play this, and you'll have to forgive me because this was back when I had like the old podcast studio, so I sound terrible. But the sound is probably a lot better than what we just heard due to the signal. All right?
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back on, and it's a great opportunity to talk about these things. And Joseph is right. We use the word Christianity, but it's not the exoteric Christianity, which means the Christianity that's officially taught by the church. There were two branches of Christianity that started after Christ. One is exoteric, which was started by Peter, and one is esoteric. Esoteric is from the Greek word. It means inner knowledge. So we're talking about the knowledge from within each and every human being. And it was championed by St. John the Divine, who wrote Revelations. And then for all this time, these teachings have been handed down orally. And it wasn't until Daskalos who systematized them, and brought them forward, because this is a very special time on Earth. We're all living in this very, very unique time where everything is accelerated so fast. Spiritual development is accelerated so fast. Falling into the darkness is accelerated so fast at this time. It's a time of great choosing. So this was the time that was chosen for these teachings to be released to the people, because this is when we need them the most. So I would like to say a couple of things before we get started. As some of you probably know, we're doing a workshop in October on archangels and the baptism of fire. Now, of course, Christianity is all about the baptism of water. We know about the baptism of water because John the Baptist, he baptized people in the river Jordan. And the baptism of water is for the remission of sins. Now, sin, we got to get rid of this official Christian thought about what sin is. It's not a heavy, guilt-laden thing. The actual word means to miss the mark. Sin is nothing more than an error. So we clean away our mistakes, basically, by this baptism of water. Now, why water? And again, this is not just on the Christian path. Any mystic who's following any mystical path will eventually come across the three baptisms. It's a standard course for mysticism. And the first one is this baptism of water. Now, why water? What's special about water? Well, just think about it. With water, we can wash the dirt from our bodies. And we can also see our reflection in it if it's clear and calm. So this is an indication of what this baptism of water is doing. We're looking into the water to see our reflection, because we're not always sure. I mean, we don't really know as much as we think we know about ourselves. We need to look at our reflection to see where we're making our mistakes, to see where we're doing good, and to kind of clarify all our positionings of where we're starting. Now, I can't say much about these higher baptisms, the baptism of fire and the baptism of spirit on the radio, but I can say something general about it. And so I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about that. So the first thing that I want to say about why I'm doing this is because when you're seeking the truth, you're on a journey, a spiritual journey. And just like a physical journey, you need to know a few things to make you feel comfortable and safe on this journey. First thing is you need to know is where you start. Where are you starting from? You know, you may be starting from a good place. You may be starting from a very unhappy place. But every happy ending needs a start, right? So it doesn't matter where we start because the ending is the same location. But the path to it, we have to go through different things depending where we start. The second thing we need to know is where we're going, of course. But, you know, no one starts out without knowing where they're going on a journey, and that's the way it is in spirituality. We really need to have an idea of where we're going, and then we need to know what else, how to get there. How are we going to get there? Something else we need to know. What do we need to take with us along the way that we might need? And then the other thing that we definitely need to know is we need to know confirmations that we're still on the right path once we start off. And, of course, we like the final confirmation you have arrived, you know. And just think about this. If this was a physical journey, you were going to get in your car in New York and drive to L.A., you would first get out a map. You'd want to see the route. You want to know where you're going. How are you going to get there? You're going to get there in your car. Well, the road, I mean, you may blow out a tire. Your car may break down. So you need to take things with you to make sure you can deal with those dangers and challenges that you encounter along the way. And then constantly you're looking at the map to make sure you're still on the right road to get to the destination you've chosen. And then finally, like all GPS systems, they like to tell you, you know, you've arrived at your destination. We like that confirmation. So now when we think about the spiritual journey, we have to think about the same exact elements. We need the same things on our spiritual journey. So the first one we didn't know is where we're starting from. Now, this is different. Physically, you know where you are physically on the earth right now. But spiritually, you don't really know where you stand. So that's where the baptism of water comes in, because there's this element of water that gives you this reflection. So we have to see ourselves as a personality objectively. We have to look at our strengths, our weaknesses, and be honest with ourselves and say, you know, here's a place of improvement. So we have to get out of that part of our personality that has a vested interest in our own ideas and notions. We have to look at ourselves objectively, and that's what the part of the baptism of water is about. The other thing is that it washes away our sins, but what we want to say is it washes away our impurities, our negativities, our fears, our doubts, our illusions. This is the baptism of water. Now, the next baptism is that of fire. Now, material fire burns and dissolves things, but the baptism of fire is the inner fire, and that fire cleanses and purifies. It invigorates you. Now, when John the Baptist was baptizing people in the Jordan River, he would say, the one that comes after me is greater than me, and he's going to baptize you in the fire and spirit. Now, we heard that, but I challenge you to see where in the Bible they tell you what that means. They don't. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. But here's a good point now. The baptism of water was done by John, a human being. Typically in a church, they baptize babies. And again, the baptism is for the remission of sin. So you may want to ask the question, why do they need to baptize babies if for sin when they're just born? Unless they lived again before, I should say. Well, if you ask the church, they'll say, oh, it's a baptism of sin for Adam and Eve's fall. And then that's just nonsense. Adam and Eve did not fall. The Adams and the Eves were blessed, not cursed and kicked out of paradise. They were blessed to leave paradise for all these incarnational journeys. So that's another piece we should think about. And then finally, the baptism of spirit is so high. And again, not everybody's ready for the baptism of fire or water, or air, I mean. Baptism of fire is done by Christ. But the baptism of water was done by John. It's done by a priest, which is telling us something. It's done by a human being. It's done by a personality. But in our case, this baptism of water, just having a couple minutes and a priest put water on you does not really do the baptism. The true baptism of water takes much, much longer. But it's done by a personality. Who? Your personality. You do it. But now the baptism of fire is done by Christ, and the baptism of spirits is even higher, and that's too really advanced to even talk about at all here in this venue. But I just want to say that because it's on our path. It's on the path of mysticism. It's on the path of any spiritual seeker who's trying to get to God, however you define that God to be.
Wow.
So I just want to say a little bit about it.
That's pretty cool. I've always wondered about baptism and where it came from, and it's just kind of funny how when Christ brought it on the scene, it wasn't a tradition of the Jews, and it was something brand new, in the stories, and it became something regular now,
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Are you ready to take a caller? I believe we have one waiting here.
Sure.
All right. We have a caller from, I believe, 505 area code, but I don't know if they're there anymore. Can you hear us? I'll call them back. But, yes, when you were talking about that, I was thinking, man, the tradition of baptism, you see a lot of these other religions that, do some kind of bathing or washing or purification. And, when you look in the old stories and stuff, it seems to be like it's much older than we would imagine, but it's the symbolism that you're talking about, right?
Right. It symbolizes something. It's not just some empty ritual you do externally. It's something that happens internally. You have to internalize it for it to really take off. In
Sorry,
India,
the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Please try your call again later. Goodbye.
That's the last time I try to call anybody back. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just saying in India, you'll see everyone goes there. The devoted go down to the Ganges and to take a bath in the Ganges to purify. So yes, this idea of purification by water is a long-standing tradition. It's not just Christian.
All right. And the call-in number for tonight and for this show is 501-858-3075. I try to get Daniel to stick around here as long as possible. So if you can call in and ask him your question, that'd be great. But why do you think... back then, and I always wondered about this, and it kind of might be a little bit off subject, but why do you think that the Jews so accepted John the Baptist that way? Like because if you did anything outside of tradition, they wouldn't have anything to do with it. But there was something about that they welcomed and made it a part of everything,
Well, he was sort of a thorn in their side in a way because he ends up getting his head cut off.
Right,
by the king, but so it's not like he was praised all the time.
Right.
But he just went out. He was a voice in the wilderness, crying out is what he called himself, which is exactly what the prophet Elijah called himself. And there's a connection between the two. Okay. Because you'll read in the Bible, and this is another good point about they say no, reincarnation is not in the Bible. It totally is in the Bible. They threw much out, especially the passages about where Christ is talking to Nicodemus. But there's still that passage where Christ has asked his disciples, "Who do they say that I am?" Mm-hmm. And the disciples said, "Some say you're a prophet come from before. Some say you're Elijah." And he says, for those with ears to hear, Elijah, the spirit of Elijah has come again as John the Baptist.
Yeah. All right.
He's pointing it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is reincarnation.
All right. Now we got 505 area code. You're on the air with Daniel Joseph. Hello.
Hello, Daniel. This is David. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hi. Let's see. I'm wondering if is there a connection with Archangel Gabriel and the baptism of water?
Of course. Mm-hmm. Water,
if you could speak liquid. To that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Water, liquids, is Gabriel's element. He's in charge of that element. So when one does the baptism of water, either as a visualization or goes down to physical water and immerses themselves, you're being embraced by the Archangel Gabriel. And that may sound very far out, but these archangels are not just we're not talking about some antiquated story about them. We're talking about our own direct experiences with them.
So when we say Gabriel embraces you in the element of liquid and during the baptism of water, we mean it because we feel it. We know it. We see him. There's a great mysticism to all this. And Gabriel, that's a good question. Gabriel is in charge of the element of water. They call him the Lord of the element of water. And the water is the connection between the material plane and the psychical world. So there's even more to it that I can't explain here.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I might have chime in a little bit. I'll have more questions, but thank you for it now.
Yeah, feel free to call back. Thanks for calling.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting about that. Because I've read books from, esoteric books as far as even magicians go and stuff. When they do protection, rituals and stuff, they call on the archangels and, Gabriel's in the south, and it has the color blue. And, it's like everything having to do with protection has something to do with these archangels. It's like a must, with the magicians that you have to do that,
Yeah, but I want to make a very clear point, is that researchers of truth are not about magic. Right. We don't do magic. Magic has been done before, and a lot of times the motivation isn't pure. It's to have an experience or to be able to perform certain magical acts. The reason we do it, the one and only reason, is just to make a better self, so that you're a better human being, so you can enjoy life more, so you can love more, so you can help other people more. That's why we're doing it. We're not doing it to create magical experiences.
Yeah,
they may come as
right. Yeah, you're not trying to get that red Corvette or anything like that, are you?
No, we're not trying to do that.
Now, I wanted to talk just a little bit about just the simplicity of this and ask you, because I've had questions from friends of mine at work and stuff that have actually listened to you speak before, and it's kind of a broad question, but they're like, okay, Joseph, so is he, if you can ask him, is Christ a person, or is he a state of consciousness, or is it both? Because it gets confusing to them, because they're taught that Christ is just this person, and that's it, and there's really not any more to it.
Right. Christ is way more than the personality of Jesus that lived for 33 years, 2,000 years ago in some backward country. Christ is a principle, not a personality. So it's the Christ principle that when we talk about Christ, we're talking about the Christ principle. He was totally the perfect, immaculate ray of that principle. I say it this way. Jesus was a perfect, immaculate ray of that principle, incarnated on earth. But it's way more than just some guy that was on earth for 33 years. It's a principle. It's a very, very high thing. And it's so high that it's hard to even speak about it, because those who've reached this state of consciousness and can go enter into that kind of place, what words can they describe it to you? They could make up words, and Daskalos has made up words to try to describe this, but you'll find that the words don't carry much meaning because we don't understand. It's like if I went to back in time and I tried to explain to a caveman something about a Learjet, what words could I use?
Yeah, right.
Could I say plane? Could I say fly? Could I say jet engine? I couldn't say any. I could say those words, but they would carry no meaning for him. And that's the problem about the mystics who can reach these high states and touch them and turn around. Now, when they touch them, believe me, they turn around and come back to help every one of us, because they know at that point every one of us is them. That's a mystical thing, but it's the absolute truth. You see it in the Asian cultures about the bodhisattvas. They get to reach their liberation, but they don't take it. They turn, and Daskalos was one of those. And he used to say, I want to be the tear that remains here in the worlds of existence to wipe away the tear from the eyes of those who suffer. He said, I'll be the last one to take my liberation. They turn because once they get to that state, they get it.
Yeah.
So they turn and come back to help everybody. So it's sort of like the world teaches us every man for himself, but really ours is no man left behind. That's our model.
I wonder if that's what in Revelation, what he's talking about. Once you get there, that you have the choice to take the river of life freely and come and go as you want and things like that. Is that related to that at all?
That's exactly that. Yeah, and even those who when the time is allowed for them to go merge back into the Godhead, if you will. In Christianity, they call it theosis. In Hinduism, they call it God realization. It doesn't matter what you call it. But when the individual goes back into the whole ocean, and a cup of water gets thrown back in the ocean, most people think that's the end of it, but it's not. Because that cup of water, that individual can come out anytime he wants because he's got all the powers now. He's got all the knowledge. He's part of that. He always was, but now he realizes he was part of this. And he can use that and come back to help, but he only comes back to help. I mean, that's it. He doesn't come back just to entertain himself or to have his own experiences because he's done through with all that. So now his whole point is just helping everybody else reach that state.
And if for the new listener out there, because I do see we have some new ones from some IP addresses I've never seen before, how can they find you guys' work? How could they get started?
Well, there's just a massive amount of stuff on researchersoftruth.org. And if they go to researchersoftruth.net, I have a lot of written lessons and audio lessons, and there's even a video on there. So you can familiarize yourself that way. And I tried writing the book Swimming with the Whale as an introductory piece to show you the step-by-step basic elements of the teachings and the associated practices, because it doesn't do any good just to collect this knowledge. Collecting knowledge usually just feeds egoism. You got to have the experience with it along the way, which means you have to do a practice. There has to be a practice with it. It's knowledge and the practice. It's like two legs or two wings to fly, maybe, but you need them both.
Yeah, and I got to say, I mean, I've been all over the internet, and I've found some of the best people on the planet in the salt miners community. I've made friends with a few of them. I mean, some of them even, call in on me and check on me every now and then, and they really care about what's going on in my life. And we're all on the kind of the same journey here. It's amazing, man.
Yeah, and that ties back. Great comment, because that ties back to what I said initially, that a person on a physical journey, they need confirmation they're on the right way. People on the spiritual journey need the same thing. And one of the confirmations is you start to care about others more. You get great high experiences. The things that used to bother you, they don't bother you anymore. But the most important thing is you notice that you start caring about every other human being, because you start to feel they are you. It's love your neighbor as yourself. Because in truth, he is yourself.
Yeah, right.
If you think about the common self, we're all from the common selfhood. So really, when we think about human beings, there really isn't 5 races. There's one race. It's the human race. And we all come from the same source. So we're like a life stream that's come here together. That's why we don't want to leave anybody behind, because they're all us.
Now, I don't want to get, into glazing anybody's eyes over, but when you were speaking earlier about baptism, I thought, man, baptism has got to be one of the most profound symbolism in what I guess you would call it a ceremony or whatever. But what is the dove? The dove that descends in the Bible, what does that relate to?
It's related to the Holy Spirit. Okay. The dove is the Holy Spirit.
Okay, that's pretty simple then, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that, so John the Baptist, do you believe that he started this ceremony, or did it come way before then? Like way before that?
Well, certainly in the Hindus, they were doing it before John the Baptist. They didn't call it baptism. But it was the same principle. You're washing yourself clean. And, some people just took it as a physical ritual, and it went that far. But those who deeply penetrate into the mysteries, the spiritual mysteries, they knew it was a symbol for something higher, washing yourself clean. Clean of what? Your fears, your anxieties, your doubts, your negativities, your jealousies, your hatred toward other people. These are the things we're trying to wash from ourselves. And when we do, then we discover something really amazing. we discover two things. One thing is we're not that dirty self because we can clean it. And then who is it that we are cleaning our dirty self, our dirty personality? That you start to realize that you're something much, much higher. You are the soul self, or just call it the higher self or the inner self. We don't really have two selves. We have two expressions, a divine and a human. So we call it lower and higher. But they're not. Don't get confused and think you have two selves. You do not. There's one self.
Right. There's a question from the chat room here on Spreaker, and it's from Catalina, and she wants to know, in what ways, other than, I guess, just feeling, does the Holy Spirit affect us in our lives? How can we tell it's working with us?
Put your hand on your heart. That's the pulse of life. It beats. That's coming from the Holy Spirit. If it was up to us to make our heart beats, we'd all be dead. So the beating of the heart is giving us life. The Holy Spirit is a life giver. That's just the obvious one. And that pulse of life, that spark of life, is in every living thing. And everything's living. So It's everywhere.
Well, I guess what I mean is, and maybe it's not the Holy Spirit, like I get these, ever since I've been on this journey, Daniel, I get these moments of where I feel like I've asked a question and something is coming through and telling me the answer, whether it be through when I turn the TV on, it's like an emotional thing happening that gives me the exact answer, or through the radio, or even through things that I run into, like if somebody leaves a faith rock somewhere and I just happen to stumble upon it. Is that the Holy Spirit working, or is that angels, or is that coincidence? Because it really don't seem like coincidence to me.
There is no such thing as coincidence. It's not. It is the Holy Spirit, but it's through the emissary of the guardian angel. And this is a very important point, because we receive divine. This is God guiding us. And if you'll know, if you pay attention, you'll notice there's maybe 4 different stages of that. Like, for example, let's say you're a gambler, and you're gambling your family's money away, and you're in danger. Really, you're lost control to it. Maybe you'll see a movie about a gambler that he loses everything. He loses his family. He loses his wife. He loses his job because he's addicted to gambling. That's divine guidance coming right at you, and you'll feel it, just like you said, in a TV show or anything. It can come from anywhere. The second one maybe is a friend says, "Oh man, you better cool it, or you could really lose everything." So there's another way, and that's coming even closer to us, and that's hard to take. But it's a lot harder to take than the next one, and that next one is usually somebody like an enemy, or maybe a police authority, or something serious coming at you and telling you the same thing. And then if you don't get it through these gentle methods, and there's many of these really, and they come multiple times, but we either ignore them, not listening to them, or just override them with our own egotism. Then if you don't get it by those gentle ways, then comes what Daskalos called the whip of destiny, some consequence where you do lose everything. You lose your wife and family. You lose your car. You lose your job. Mm-hmm. And then you realize, I could have listened to the guidance when I could have made a turn before I hit the tree, kind of thing.
I've had that happen to me, actually, yeah. And it's
really your
yeah.
It's really your guardian angel bringing your attention to it is what is happening.
And I got to say, you know what, though, Daniel, I got to say, if it wasn't for that happening to me, I don't think I would be where I am today. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be on this journey. I wouldn't have learned some of the things I know. And it seems like the more I learn, especially from the Daskalos material, the more I don't know. I think I know stuff, but I really don't,
For sure, that's Socrates' thing. The more I know, the more I learn, the less I realize. The more I realize I don't know. Same thing, and that's true. It's such a vast thing. I mean, I've studied this particular system for 30 years, and it's just, I don't find an edge. I don't find a ceiling. I don't find the floor. It's boundless to me. It just constantly keeps teaching. And even just take basic lessons that are in Swimming with the, just a basic lesson. And I hear this from people. And you can take it in Daskalos' book, or you can take it from any book, really. If it's really got the connection to the true source, any book will work like this. And you can read it, and read it and read it, put it down, read it next year, and you'll find all kinds of new things. It'll be speaking to you in a new way. And this is why they call these teachings the living word, because it never stops teaching you. Because as you change, as you go through your experiences and grow, you start to hear new things in the same words you've read over and over. Not too long ago, I picked up a Daskalos lesson that I've read 10 times, and I just challenged myself to see if I could find something new in it. And boy, I found a whole new thread, just a whole new angle on it that I didn't perceive, from the first 10 readings. So there's an abundance of this. So it is very, very vast.
Do you think that that kind of stuff is in the Bible too? Because I found, especially the text of where Christ speaks, the understanding I had from it as a child, I'll go back and read it again, and now it means something totally different. But the weird thing is they're both true. And I don't see that a lot in, text and things. It's almost like a spiritual text or a higher spiritual point could say 5 different things, but they're all true. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. And it has to, if it's connected to the source, if it's a true lineage of teaching, it works that way. But what we have to do with the Bible, now remember, people have adjusted it. They've thrown things out. Like in 5th century, they threw out all the reincarnation things and made it punishable by death by anybody that taught it. And they burned all the Bibles and rewrote the Bible. So, we've lost a lot of stuff. So what we have to do as a researcher of truth, as a seeker of truth, as anyone on the spiritual path, if you want to look at this as a source of true wisdom and true teaching, is you have to scrape off 2,000 years of suffocating dogma and religious prejudice. And just go back to what the words of Christ. Just read those.
Right. Now, again, guys, the call-in number, because this show goes by pretty quick. We got about 25 minutes left here. So the call-in number is 501-858-3075. Now, I know, Daniel, you don't like to talk about yourself a lot, but I do, for the new listener, I want people to explain or to explain to people why I'm talking to you. And you went on a journey yourself, right, to find this. Could you tell us a little bit of, you don't have to go deep into it, but tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ran into Daskalos.
Okay. Well, it started when I was 7 years old, really. And I began to have spiritual experiences. Very profound and very, what shall I say, self-edifying. And they were very clear they were true. And I started having these experiences. I started having experiences of what we call the etheric double when I was in high school. Etheric energy. I started having these experiences, but I had nothing to, no explanation what this was. So when I got into college, I really started my search. And I wasn't brought up in a Christian family so much. We didn't go to church and whatnot like that. We loved each other and we followed sort of those things, but we didn't go to church all the time. So when I got into college, I started seeking, like, who knows? Who knows what these things are that I'm experiencing? So first thing that happened, I met this Kundalini Swami who started teaching me. And so I ate up that material. And then after he passed, I kept going. I just kept going because I wanted to reach the truth. I wanted to know what these things were that were happening to me. I wanted to know what it was all about. So I just was a seeker. And I saw it everywhere. I was on the guru hunt. I went to India. I went everywhere, Eastern, Western teachers, just to find out who knows. And then one day I ended up on Daskalos' doorstep without really any cost or any effort on my own really to go there except for getting on the plane. And bam, was the moment he started talking. Of course, the moment I walked into the room, he revealed that he knew what I was thinking all day long and what I was thinking back in America. He had the ability to know exactly what was going on with you, and he would just confirm to you what you had said to somebody or what you were thinking. And it was pretty amazing because I'd never seen anybody do that before.
It's kind of scary, right? I think if somebody walks up and just starts reading your mind, like, whoa, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it's like, but it was also very attractive to me because, like, well, whatever was going on, this guy knows more. He was like, it's like if life was a card game, he was playing with way more cards than anybody had ever met. And I had great experiences in India and with these masters in India, but this was the complete system. This was really the complete thing. And so immediately when I went to his first lesson, where he gave it in class, it was just blows you away. You just didn't realize that this guy really was the thing he was teaching. And so then I just...
Yeah, go ahead.
I stopped seeking the truth and started researching the truth. There's a point where you find the truth, and then you got to dig deep. You got to data mine it. You got to go down deep in it. And so that was a point where I stopped looking around and going deep into the teachings that I had found.
Wow.
And they truly are the teaching. It's like Christ says, this is the water I give you. You won't be thirsty again. And it's exactly that. You don't say, well, maybe somebody else knows more, because once you have these experiences and really understand what this material is, and I can't tell you how vast it is. There's so much material that the public doesn't have yet. It's just coming out. It's so vast. Once you get this, you don't thirst. Well, what you want to do is you want to dig deeper and know more about it. But you're not curious that, maybe somebody else knows more. And when someone else, you hear another teaching, you can know exactly what level that teaching is coming from, because of the depth of this one that you've already researched. Maybe I'm not saying that perfectly, but you don't thirst again.
Yeah, that's pretty. I'm telling you guys, I don't want to get religious about this, because it's definitely not a religious thing to me, but I told you when I had Jeff Harmon on the show, right? I talked to you about that, and he was like, hey, Joseph, if you really want to get into some stuff that I think will blow your mind away, that is closest to the spiritual truth, you need to go check out anything by Dr. Stylianos Atteshlis. He was the first person and then I found you on the internet. I saw you talking to people on YouTube, and it kind of went from there. And I have both of those books and your book, and it's probably the one thing that I pick up the most, I think, and I would really highly recommend anybody out there grab those books. Now, another question it's kind of more, I guess it's a question from the chat room, that some say, according to the mystery teachings, that the Holy Spirit is the female energy. Is there a difference between positive and negative and male and female energy? Is that true at all? Or are we way off?
It's true, but you can't call it positive negative. You can call it positive A and positive B, but they're not in opposition to each other like positive and negative down here on Earth on electricity. Mm-hmm. They're just two poles, but they're so definitely the Holy Spirit is the pan-universal feminine, of which Mother Mary was probably one of the most perfect reflections of that. The Logos, the male side, is the absolute pan-universal masculine. So yes, the answer is yes.
Awesome.
You need to. I mean, it's like if you think about, we talk about the Trinity in Christianity, but the Trinity is also in Hinduism. They have they call it the Trimurti. It's Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So they mythologize these three gods to describe the same three principles that Christianity is describing with the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's in. I think the Taoists have it too. Certainly, the ancient Egyptians had it. They have the Ra, Osiris, and Isis. The Trinity is on everybody's. This is the nature of reality. So any mystic that finds it, maybe they give it different names and they express it in a different way, but it's a Trinity. And so what's the Trinity? It's like a man. Just think about this. The top one, God the Father, let's just use the Christian terms, is like the head of the man. The Logos, the Christ Logos, the Son, is like the right hand of the man, and the left hand is like the Holy Spirit. Now, you look at a man working, you can't tell anything what's in that guy's mind. The only way you can tell it is by what the two hands do. You see, I see, those two hands are working together and they're making this. This is what's in the mind of the man's mind. And it's sort of like that with God. No one can know God directly. Well, all we can know is the manifestation. And the manifestation comes from the interplay of the Logos, the absolute masculinity, and the Holy Spirit, the absolute femininity.
That's so cool. That's probably one of the coolest things I've heard. And I say that because I pick up so many different books, different religions and things like that. But I've always wanted to ask you this too, Daniel, in your opinion about this. At what point did it all go wrong? I'm not saying we're doing the wrong things and we're not waking up now, but something went wrong with these teachings. And I mean, at what point in our growth as a species did it go wrong?
Well, personally, if you're talking about Christianity, I think you'd have to point to where Emperor Constantine hijacked Christianity and took it to Constantinople and just basically decided what to throw out and what to leave in by having all the bishops come. There were great debates, and there was a lot of thrown out stuff. So, and these are called the extra Bible texts, and you can find them in the Nag Hammadi libraries. So something serious went on, because the Nag Hammadi libraries were all these books that were banned from the Bible, basically. Not that they're all accurate. Some of them are definitely made up, but some of them aren't. And the problem was that the church was Constantine was trying to figure out what to do for the official religion, and it was all because he had imposed taxes on the people in Rome, saying, well, if you don't go to the pagan churches, we're going to tax you, because Christianity was outgrowing and people were stopping going to the pagan religions and starting going to Christianity. So okay, we're going to tax you if you don't go to the pagan temples. They didn't go. So he thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So he officially made Christianity the official religion of Rome. But interesting point, he never converted to Christianity. His mother was definitely a Christian, and she was a great influence on this. But he himself never converted to Christianity. He stayed pagan till the very last hour of his death, where he converted on his deathbed. So this was a kind of a thing, I think, where it went wrong personally. But really, it's not wrong, because we have to get our experiences. This is completely the prodigal son story. The better answer is the prodigal son story. The son leaves the father's kingdom. Everything's great in the father's kingdom. He comes out, he blows all his inheritance, and then there's a famine, and he starts to suffer. And he has to feed the farmer's pigs just to stay alive. He eats their husk. The husk he's feeding the pigs. So this is what's really gone wrong. It's the misuse of mind. His inheritance represents the mind. So he misused it for selfish purposes. And then he started to suffer. Well, okay, that's wrong, but the great benefit is he comes to his senses. He starts to reason. He comes to his senses. He said, I'm going to go back home. And so that's humanity's journey. Some of us are still seeking satisfaction in worldly pleasures, and some of us have realized they don't really satisfy spiritual hunger, and we've turned and we're starting to go back. And the first thing that happens when the prodigal son starts to go back to God, the first step he makes, the father sees him coming, runs and kisses him. Now today we'd say, you make one step to God, God makes 90. It's the same thing. It's the same story. So if you really want to know the whole process, just study the prodigal son story, because humanity is in that process. Some have already returned and gone back to the Father's kingdom. Some are just feeling the Father's embrace. You're starting to feel God. You're getting excited about these teachings, about life, and you feel something's happening. You're starting to turn. But others still think they're running headstrong into this worldly experience. And sooner or later, they're going to get that experience too, and they have to turn, because, like I said in the beginning, we all go back to where we started. We go back to the source eventually.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. There's a question in the chat room from Stephen, and he wants to know, what's the difference between self-realization and enlightenment, and do they happen gradually or with a bang all of a sudden like?
Yeah. That's a good question. Enlightenment is not the same as self-realization. People confuse those two. Of course, we can say the ultimate enlightenment is self-realization, but there are many enlightenments along the way. And enlightenment is basically a breakthrough to the true nature of reality. You get it. The illusion disappears and dissolves, and you see the truth. But the last one is the truth of who you are and what you are. Because who you are is a personality, but what you are, that's your inner self. That's that soul self that we're seeking. That's what self-realization means. It doesn't mean just understanding your personality as it is today. It means understanding who and what you always were. It's two different things. The personality self, it's never stable. It's never stable. It's always changing. Look back 5 years ago. You're not the same person, really, and you're not going to be the same person 10 years from now. So that personality self is illusionary because it changes all the time. It's not stable. The soul self, the inner self, does not change. And when you find that steady point in you, whether it's in a meditation or you're walking in nature, wherever it hits you, you're starting to reach that soul self. And that soul self is what we call true self-consciousness. Now, the personality self-consciousness is honestly mostly subconscious, and most people today, 90, 80% of the people live, or let's say the people live 90 to 80% of the time, they're subconscious. They live a habitual life. It's a mechanic. They get up, they go to the same job, they eat kind of the same foods, they put on the socks the same way. It's a very habitual life. So we have to eventually come out of that, and these practices start to wake us up. And now we move into this other stage of consciousness called just waking consciousness, which is still, when you first hit that, it's still you're slumbering. It's like a sleepy child. He's awake, but he's not really hitting on all cylinders, if you know what I mean. So there's many degrees of consciousness, many degrees, higher, higher, higher. But when you hit self-consciousness, it's 1 degree. Boom. You realize the self, the inner self. There's no degrees of that. You can touch it and come back out of it, but there's no degrees of self-realization.
All right, and we have a caller from 226 area code.
I could say,
Go ahead.
Let me just say one other thing. I guess I could say there was one other degree of self-realization. You realize yourself as the soul, but then the next level is you realize yourself as the eternal spirit. So there's 2 degrees that way.
Gotcha. All right, 226 area code.
Hello?
We got you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, what's up? This is Mike, right?
All right. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, what's up, brother? You got a question for Daniel?
I do. What I was talking about before was the Holy Spirit. I don't know why, but I always had a feeling that it's a female spirit and possibly could be just the Mother Earth Spirit herself. What does the guest think of that?
Okay, thanks for the question.
That's a good question. There's another layer to this. Each heavenly body has a governor. We call them a planetary logos. There's no need to get too deep into that, but they are one being caring for the planet, and it's both holy, spiritual, and logoic, which means it is a self. It's a self. Logoic means there's a selfhood in it. Holy spiritual is an impersonal self. The Holy Spirit is impersonal. It doesn't need to be a self to know. And that's just very high stuff, hard to say, but that is the truth of it. So in a sense, this planetary logos is the embodiment of both a selfhood and the impersonal Holy Spirit. And it takes care of the planet and the people on the planet. Even Benjamin Franklin thought this. That's interesting. Benjamin Franklin believed this way back when. Yeah, it's funny.
I had no idea.
He thought each planet had its... Yeah, he said each planet was governed by its own god.
Wow. All
right. Could it be a singularity inside the center of the Earth, like a small sun or black hole that's sentient in some way?
It's more than that. It's like you have a material body, but you are not your material body. These planetary logos have a planet, and they're in the planet. And I guess you quite honestly, you could say they're around the planet too. They're not the planet. They're not this glowing thing inside the planet. That's their body. You just have to think of the planet as their body. As we have a body, but we are a spirit inhabiting that body. Our body is used for our journeys through the material world. This planet is the body of this planetary logos in the three-dimensional world.
So basically you're saying I'm right.
Yes.
Thank you. That's awesome, man. Thank you very much.
No problem. That's Wolfman Mike, everybody, from Monster Castle Paranormal. Yeah, he gets deep into this stuff too. He's kind of like me. He likes to study esoteric stuff and things of that nature. Now, there is another question from the chat room from Craig, and he says, fear, love, man, woman, warm, cold. He's talking about opposites here. He says, do you not believe that the highest power would be the balance or the center between the two?
Love has no counterpoint. True love has no counterpoint. It's not the opposite of hate. Just like true peace is not the opposite of war. It's not the absence of war. It's something else. These are principles. I'll say it in our terms. Principles in a higher noetic state. Archetypal principles from which everything you see around you is based on. So we can't really compare them like that. Love and hate it's not the same. Now, human love and human hate, yeah, those two are polarities. But true love, unselfish love, has no counterpoint.
Yeah, you see that a lot in a lot of esoteric scriptures about, the polar opposites and stuff. And they kind of, what I think they're trying to teach there, Daniel, is just not to be polar-minded in any given situation, For instance, if someone comes to you in anger and tries to hurt you or talks bad about you, if you're a polar or if you become polar, you'll automatically fight back or whatever instead of trying to understand that person's pain and why they're doing that,
That's right. That's very.
And I learned that
extinguish fire with more fire.
Right, yeah. And I learned that from, the books, your book and Daskalos' book, that everybody has a pain that they're dealing with, and everybody reacts out of that pain, either from the lack of love or the fear that they're not going to get it. And that's where it all goes down to. But sometimes I wonder, Daniel, the biggest thing in life is the relationship between people. I mean, is it not like the relationship between you and I or me and another person that I'm not sure that we understand or we can even fathom, and I could be wrong about this, what God's love or unconditional love, how powerful it truly is.
Yeah, that's true. And then the caller's right, though, because this world is a world of dualities. Everything in this world is dual. But this world is a shadow of another world where there is beyond dualities. This is in the Hindu, what they call their Vedanta philosophy. It's non-dualism. That world is non-dual, but our world is definitely dual. So in this world, you definitely see those opposites that he spoke about. But in the reality, this world is inside another world, inside and interpenetrated by another world. And when you raise your consciousness high enough, you come out of this duality state. You just do. And probably if you really have true love for somebody, real love, what happens? You start to disappear, really.
Yeah, and you become a whole different person. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, you're starting to come out of this world of duality. Now, it's like a comparison between fresh water and salt water on the earth. Most of the earth is salt water, but there is fresh water. And it's the same thing about true love and human love, or say divine love and human love, or selfish love and human love. There's a whole lot of selfish love in this world. You have a relationship, and that person gives you what you want. They think of you as the way you want to be thought of. You go, gosh, I like that person, and you love them back. That's love by reflection, Daskalos called it. Because you're loving them because they're reflecting back to you what you want to see. But the moment that person stops doing that, then you fall out of love. That's not real love. That's the duality love. That's the human love. But what we're looking for in our life is true love, and it's unselfish. There is no counterpoint to it. You don't measure it. It's not measured. You love and you give because that's all you can do. Then what else can you do? But if you're measuring how much love you're getting versus how much love you're getting, you're in duality. So.
Yeah, I wish Rusty was here, man, because I try to explain that to him, because he's asked me, he's like, well, how can you still love, your ex after, the mother of my child after she's done all these things and yada, yada. I said, well, first of all, nobody's perfect. And from the moment I loved that person, I never stopped. And to this day, no matter what they've done, if they needed me for anything, I'd be there. It's almost... Yeah. It's hard to talk about, to be honest with you. It's hard to explain. It may seem wrong to some people, but it's very hard to explain.
Well, if you're thinking, that person's did this to me, and I'm not going to love her because she did this to me, then, you're in this human love, this love by reflection, which is not true love. It's just a shadow. It's really a dark shadow of true love, because love is light.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see a shadow with polarity like that, you know that something's blocking the light. That's what causes a shadow. Something gets in between you and the light. That's how you see a shadow.
All right, so we're down to the end of this thing. I will ask this last question in the chat room here from Steven, and it's kind of off what we're talking about, but it's a pretty cool question. He wants to know, what did Daskalos say about the correct understanding and uses of sacred geometry? Well, that's a big one there. We may have to do another show on that one.
I think we have to get into Platonic solids to talk about that one. I don't know that Jesus talked about sacred geometry. I don't know of any place where he did, but the whole world is based on sacred geometry. I mean, look at the shell of the Nautilus. You look at things that last that humans make. Let's just pick the salt box houses of New England. Their proportions of the windows are all the 5 proportions. And that style has stayed around for a long time because it's likable. The Ming vase in China has the same proportions. All these natural and well-made human things, including the Stonehenge, the Parthenon, certainly the pyramids of Egypt, we all know about the golden ratio in that. All these things have this sacred geometry built into them. So the ancients and the true artists like Da Vinci, they use this in their creations because it puts a harmony in there. And that harmony has come from the higher laws as they manifest in nature. So someone studies nature. They study how that Nautilus shell makes a new chamber 6.14 times larger than the one before, and the next one is the same way. It's a natural harmonic proportion, and it creates balance and order.
Yeah, you see the golden ratio and everything, right? And that's a big, deeper subject because there's numbers in biblical text too, 144,000 and the gematria and all that stuff. But and that stuff is fascinating. But the main story here is the main goal we're talking about here is finding your true, authentic spiritual self, right? And getting close to God or source, whatever you want to call it. I call it God,
Yeah, and to do that, we're back to the baptism of water. You have to do that by reflection because you have to see that part of you that's not godlike. You have to separate that part of you that's behaving not godlike from the part that is godlike. Then you can see the two. But right now they're kind of mixed up. People don't recognize when there's one or the other manifesting usually. So that's part of the reflection of the baptism of water, to see oneself. And the only work on that is you see it and you clean it, you purify it, you vow not to make the same mistakes or to hurt the people that you hurt before. You clean yourself. And so you're conscious. This is what you've ever said, we got to raise our consciousness. Well, this is how you do it. You throw out the sandbag weights of the balloon. You throw out the dirty things, the heavy things in you, and you start to rise. And then you start to really sense and feel yourself, that higher self. And you realize, that was me all the time.
Right. Well, this has gone by so fast. We're down to the end of this thing now. Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience before we go off air here?
No, I just wish they all find what they're looking for. I hope everyone seeks and finds the truth in themselves, because that's the real thing that makes us happy. The things in the world we chase after, spend our whole life chasing after, they're gone. They're so illusionary, they're gone. The real things is when we really love both God, ourselves, and other human beings. It's all the same. So I hope everyone finds that in their own lives.
Right on. And hey, Daniel, again, I want to, really thank you for spending time with us and coming out. It means a lot to us here at Lighting the Void.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's nice talking to everybody. Peace to everyone tonight.
I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. right, guys, that was Daniel Joseph, and you can find their work at researchersoftruth.org. Go back and listen to the past episodes on podcast. They're all there on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere you want to listen to it. This one will be up on replay. We got another show coming on at 9 o'clock. Dark Waters, the King of Horror will be on. Don't miss that one. We'll have the whole crew in here. See you guys in a couple hours.
If you suffer in silence or experience stress from a paranormal experience, even if it happened 20 years ago, then thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now, this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma is all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. AncientLifeOil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person, you. AncientLifeOil.com. And one more thing, we have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. AncientLifeOil.com.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
All right, so we're doing like a Daniel Joseph marathon, so to speak. So here we go.
course, there's an energetic component to that.
Yvonne is asking, is a person aware they are in a hell or they kind of know how to end, I guess, how to end such experience? I think, so I think if someone was in that situation, because that is a scary thought, so I'm with you on that, but if they're in that situation, how could they end it themselves if there's no one there to help?
Well, there's plenty of people on the other side to help. There's lots of invisible helpers. There's even angels that materialize bodies on the other side. You don't see them so much here, but they're much more active on the other side, and they're always there trying to help. And there's also this other thing. Our journey is the journey of the prodigal son. We're supposed to go out and suffer and have our experiences and come back home. So even a person who's stuck in their hell, they can stay there for a very long time, but not forever, because they're pulled back to the soul before they're reprojected out as a new incarnation. So they just delay it. They don't get stuck forever, but they just delay it. And of that person like that, the point of it is that person was in his paradise. He wasn't feeling like he was in hell. That was his paradise. And so,
gotcha.
So, I mean, that's the whole thing. The site, when we pass over, we create our paradise, but it may be a total hell for you, but it's their paradise.
Gotcha.
Or our paradise could be an absolute hell for somebody else.
501 area code. You're on the air with Daniel Joseph.
Hey, Joe, Daniel, this is Chad Warren, and totally enjoying the show. First time listening live. Just here and there, you're talking about life essence. I was hearing. I like the idea that kung fu is just anything that you do well. That's your kung fu.
Are you talking about etheric vitality or your life essence? I think is that what you're talking about?
I'm using that as a synonymous term. Maybe that's incorrect.
No, that's cool. I got you.
I'm interested to hear from Daniel. I'm interested, I think the zeitgeist of this time, obviously, as we're talking over the internet, just the expansion and ability of these different communities to hear each other and have this wider understanding, this transpersonal growth. Some kind of communion between us despite our differences. I want to hear what Daniel thinks. Does he have hope that somehow past all this kind of internet addiction and the dark sides of all that, does he have a hope that, we'll really change how we live together?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I have a lot of hope. I see a lot of good things, and I see a lot of challenges. But even in the bad things, that's the whole great thing about what's happening to anybody, is that even the bad experiences lead you in the right direction. And let's just use a simple thing. Right. A little child goes out and his parent says, "Don't touch the stove, it's hot." He touches the stove and he gets burned. Well, that's not a good experience. It's a bad experience, but it might save him from worse experiences in the future. So even our most painful ordeals have a great blessing in it if we can learn the lesson of what the ordeal is. But slowly, life takes us forward. It drags the unwilling, but it leads the willing. So absolutely. And just think about it. We're all talking about these different things, and it's this thing or that thing or this guru's thought or this kundalini thing or kung fu, whatever you want to call it. We're all trying to describe the same reality. We all have different methods and different approaches, but we're all trying to describe the same reality. It's like the 7 blind men touching an elephant and trying to describe it. We're all describing it from our angle. And that was one of Daskalos' beautiful statements, I thought. He said, the great light, the truth is like a great light that penetrates this gem, and colors gleam from every side. Mystics, messengers, and sages from all generations, all cultures, all times have spoken about a different facet of this common eternal truth. So that's all we're doing. One day we'll grok it and say, "Oh, wow, we're talking about this same eternal truth."
Yeah, it does seem like our tools that we create for communication, say like the internet, right, which is a great way for us to do what we're doing now, to help enlightenment, to help self-awareness, and it could become a great thing. But then, you could get on social media and easily see how we've used it against ourselves in a lot of ways with news and disinformation and polarities and pick a side, choose a side. And just like the other day, I said I didn't really believe in Bigfoot. I wasn't quite sure. And someone commented that, I'm done. I'm not listening anymore. I'm not listening to the Bigfoot bashing. And I never trashed Bigfoot. I just said I wasn't sure about it. So that's the polarities we're dealing with because of this internet thing,
Well, it's not just that.
I'm loving it.
Thanks,
It's not just that. We're in the world of duality. Everything is dual here. Nobody can say anything that somebody doesn't say the opposite is true. This is the world of duality. Hot, cold, black, white, dark, light, up, down. We're not going to get away from that. But the idea is to synthesize. This is the ladder of relative truth. We keep stepping higher and higher, and pretty soon we finally get the big picture. But right now we're just being knocked around by the dualities. It's this or it's not that,
Yeah, so that's all I was saying is I wasn't sure about it. And I don't know. I'm with Chad on that too, because it does seem like hopeless sometimes. But then again, maybe we're just focused on the wrong things. I've seen people do mass prayers, like when people do. There's all kinds of meditations going on right now that we're not aware of. When I'm saying that, and Daniel probably knows what I'm talking about, there are people right now who are doing everything they can, and they're meditating in secret. They're doing it at the same times. They're actually fighting for the enlightenment of this earth. Do you know what I'm talking about, Daniel? I mean, there's people doing that
sure.
all over.
Yeah, I mean, for many, many decades, there's been groups that just by themselves, I mean, they're all over the world, but wherever you are at 9 o'clock at night, you just sit down and you do a prayer for the earth and envision it being just flooded in rosy light, and pray for peace on the earth. So everybody in their own time zone is doing this. So it's like this beautiful rosy light sweeping across the globe every day in everybody's time zone. It's been going on for decades, but very few people talk about it.
So what do you think? Do you know, do you still speak to Daskalos? I know that's kind of a personal question, but he's got to still be here somewhere, right? He said he would be.
Yeah, he didn't go anywhere. I mean, you can't see him in his body, but he's still here, as he always promised he would be. But yeah, I talk to him, but it's when he talks to me that's much more interesting for me.
Gotcha. So we all have this, according to Revelations, it says that God will give us a new name, and only He and God will know that name. So do you think that that's a literal thing? It's not, like we have a higher self. Obviously, you said that already, but we have this name that we've always had that maybe we just don't know what it is.
Sure.
That's so fascinating to me.
You want to know what it is?
Yeah. What is it? God? Is that what you're going to say?
No.
Okay.
You're saying it all the time, but you don't even. It's so beautiful because it's hidden right under our nose. When somebody says, "Who are you?" you say, "I am Joseph." That's the whole truth. The I is your spirit, the am is your soul, and Joseph is your personality. I am Joseph. The name of everybody is the I am. It's the pure self-awareness. That's the name. Everybody's got the same name. That's the new name.
I am that I am. That's
that's
I
right.
get that
That's
now.
right. Yeah.
So does that mean when I make a statement that I'm angry, or if I'm jealous, or I'm happy, or I'm sad, at that moment, is that what I am, or am I just going too deep, I think?
No, that's what your personality is. Your soul never gets angry. Your spirit and your soul never get angry. They never get jealous. They're never lost. They're never darkened. They're not high. They're not low. They're not young. They're not old. They're eternal. So it's only the personality that goes through those dualities.
Oh, here's a good question from. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The soul is at oneness. It's at peace. It's forever free and never bound. It's just our personalities that suffer.
Gotcha. Okay. This is from Paul. He said in the Esoteric Teachings, Daskalos talks about the human body that consists of 7 elements. 4 earth, water, fire, and air, but the remaining three are of a higher magnetic natures. Do you know what those are?
It's the different states of the ethers, which he's referring to. He's referring to the magnetic and the electric and those states. Daskalos doesn't really talk much about the higher ones because it's not so important to us right now. But just to know that the etheric alone is enough to know about that. We have this etheric double. We can use it. That's what causes healing. It's just flooding. The first thing a healer does is flood these people with all this etheric vitality, and that's what restores the diseased organ. They empower that etheric counterpart of the organ with enough energy, and it rights itself, karma permitting. No healer has ever healed anybody. It's the Holy Spirit that works through them. And people, the illness is not a mistake. It's under the law of cause and effect, under the law of karma. So if that person has enough karma for someone to take a little portion of it off and there can be a healing, then it happens. But no one can guarantee a healing from anybody else. It has to do with the law of cause and effect.
I was just fixing to ask you that about cause and effect, because I've always looked at that as a hermetic thing. Because, I mean, hermetics is just hermetics, but cause and effect, is that strictly talking about karma, or is that talking about our choices here and now, or both?
Well, certainly our choices here and now create our karma, don't they? So it's both. The law of cause and effect is the same thing as, Newton saying that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Or Christ said, what you sow shall you reap. Scientists call it the laws of cause and effect. And it's a good name for it because and here's the important part is the cause. I mean, the effect is never greater than the cause. That's why the stupid teachings that have been presented as Christianity, saying, if you sin in this lifetime when you're only 100 years, you don't even live 100 years, and you sin, you're going to be condemned to eternal damnation. Well, that goes against the law of cause and effect because it's exactly proportionate. The cause is exactly proportionate. So it's blasphemy, really, to even say that somebody could sin for 70 years and then be eternally damned. It's just stupid. Can't be accepted.
So even the biggest, worst sinner, I'm talking about evil-natured person, could eventually is going to come back around full circle?
To the proportionate amount that they can handle. For example, we always hear Hitler killed 6 million Jews. Okay.
Right.
How's he going to be killed 6 million times? That's just not possible. How is he ever going to pay the karma back? Well, it turns out, and this is true for every one of us, that God takes 90% of our karma. He carries the cross, 90% of the humanity's karma. All we have to do is carry 10%. So what a healer does is he goes and working under this law of cause and effect, and if it's allowed, he can take 10% of that 10% of the person. So, for example, if a person's karma was 100 units, well, Christ takes 90% of it. So the person is really only carrying 10 units of that karma. Now, a healer goes up and he takes 10% of that person's karma. So he's taking 1% of the original karma. But then immediately, Christ lifts 90% of that person's karma. So really, the healer is only shouldering 1%. I mean, 0.1%. It's a very small amount. And healers who can work in this capacity, and I don't mean just fake ones, I mean the real guys, they know how to burn that up. They know how to burn the karma off. There's mechanisms for burning the karma. So it's a very small amount they take, and it just shows you the mercy of the system.
What about, I did a show last night, Daniel, about our dreams. And can our dreams last night I finally had a dream. I remembered I had a dream that I was in the 8th grade and I was back at my old school and I was watching a play, and these people in the play were talking about some weird things about fear. But do you do that at all, dream interpretation? It seems too chaotic to even bother with it sometimes to me.
Well, Daskalos would always say there is no such thing as dreams. These are real experiences we're having on the psychical plane. But the trouble with it is and this gets back to the etheric vitality, there has to be a bridge between the material brain and what you're doing on the psychical plane for you to remember it properly. Otherwise, and he gives the analogy of a film type camera where you take a picture and you used to have to turn the roll to the next frame and then take the picture. He says when you come back without that bridge, it's like you've taken all the pictures at the same time, so it seems jumbled, but when it's occurring, it's not really jumbled. There's an order to it. There's a progression of sequence. Now, there's different kinds. There's a lucid dream where you're awake. You're not just dreaming. And what we're calling dreaming is just the parade of subconscious images manifesting in the psychical plane. So we see them. So if you're good at knowing your own mythology, which means knowing what things mean to you, what Uncle Ernie means to you, what's he mean to you? If you're dreaming of Uncle Ernie, what's he mean to you? Right. So you have to learn your own mythology about what these people and things mean. For example, in the United States, you dream about a snake, that's an evil sign. But if you're a Hindu, it's a sign of Kundalini, it's a positive sign. So there's cultural overlays here too. But if you're studying yourself, you can study these things, because even if it's a subconscious dream, there's symbolisms in there that can really guide you and help you.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask this question too. There's a lot of talk about who Lucifer really is. As some people say he's Satan, some people say he's a fallen angel, some even say he's the actual good guy. Does Daskalos have any thoughts on this?
Of course, yes. There are no bad true. He's an archangel. There's no bad archangels. The fallen angels, they didn't even become angels before they fell. I don't know if I should if I got time to run you through the whole thing, but
yeah, you got plenty of time. We got about 30 minutes left. We have to take another break, but yeah.
Okay. Well, in the beginning, which is eternal, when God had the will pleasure to manifest everything, the beings in the multiplicity of God resonated with his will pleasure. So these eternal spirit beings that compose God, they're very similar to God. They're in oneness with God. They feel the will pleasure to manifest themselves. So they come out. They extend a ray of themselves out of this state of perfect unity and at oneness with God. And they go through things called archetypal ideas. Well, the first one these beings go through is the archangelic archetype. And here they get classified into the different orders of archangels. Well, these fallen ones, because now all these beings have free will. So they're doing it not because God willed it, but because they willed it too. They want to cooperate with God. So it's their will too. But because there's free will, those beings don't have to go through that archangelic idea. So the fallen ones divert and they turn. They refuse to go through it. And immediately they drop. They're deprived of their creative powers. They don't have creative powers like the true archangels do. So they drop and they fall into these worlds of existence, but they can't materialize. They can't come into matter, the material world. They can't come into the psychic world or the noetic world. But what they can do is they fall and they hang out in the etheric counterpart of these worlds, and they influence people. And just as an archangel, when it creates an elemental or a projection, it's an angel. But when these fallen ones create a projection, it's a demon. And all these demons can do is influence people, but they can only influence people who vibrate in harmony with them. So if you're an angry person, yeah, you can be influenced by one of these demons. But if you're not an angry person, no angry demon can influence you.
Gotcha.
It has to do with the purity of your heart. And Daskalos was always telling us the best protection from anything is a pure heart, because those lower negative things can't touch you. So these guys have just circumvented the divine plan to go through this archangelic idea, and other beings go on to go through the human idea, and that's what the human race is. So it's a great pantheon up there, and down here too.
Okay. I got just a few more questions we're going to take, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're going to take just a short break, guys. This is a real interesting conversation. Got a lot of live listeners tonight, so...
I didn't really answer the question about Lucifer, though.
We'll answer that when we come back. I want to hear this one for sure. We'll be right back, guys, with Daniel Joseph.
Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. We spend almost as much time online as sleeping, and that's 6 to 8 hours a day. The internet knows a lot about us, and that's why we should care about our online data. Use Surfshark to encrypt your personal information and send it via a secure VPN tunnel so that no one can see it without your permission. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. You need to protect yourself from surveillance and targeted advertising. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're here with Daniel Joseph. We're at the last part of the show, so if you got any questions, if you want to call in or you want to send a question in the chat room, the call-in number's 501-777-5631. You can hit me up on Facebook Messenger if you have a question like you guys have been, or in the Spreaker chat, or in the Fringe FM chat as well. And as we were going into the break, I was asking a question about Lucifer, and I kind of cut him off there before he could actually tell you who Lucifer really was, and I'll just let you take that away, Daniel.
Okay. He's an archangel, and as you know, everybody says, it says in the Bible, he's the bearer of light. Well, what's that mean? He's the bearer of light. How can he be evil if he's the bearer of light, right? Well, what he is the keeper of the law of cause and effect, the law of duality. Now, that's what causes us the problem, isn't it? We suffer through this duality. We suffer through the law of cause and effect. We suffer karma. So maybe we should think about him as like a policeman. Now, if we're breaking the law, a policeman's a bad guy. But if we're upholding the law, maybe the policeman's a good guy, in principle I'm talking, So Daskalos says it's best not to try to connect with him or think about him. He's the keeper of the law of duality. So he brings very painful consequences to people when they break the laws, not as a punishment, but to wake people up. So I think that's where he's got the bad rap. But again, it's not necessary to concentrate on him or think about him at all. We have plenty of just archangels we could contact who don't express the duality. They only know love. But this guy's job is to keep the law and order, basically, in the lower dimensions, in the worlds of duality.
Does astrology play a role in this at all? Like, I don't know if I've talked to you about that before, but I've always wondered about the other planets and if Daskalos ever mentioned them in any way.
In terms of astrology, of course, yeah, there is an effect. I mean, you can tell the moon has an effect on Earth. It draws the tides up. But consider this. You can find somebody that's born under a certain sign on the same day, at the same hour, at the same minute of the day. And when certain planets line up, one of those people feels real creative, and the other one is easily agitated. Why is that? Okay, there's an influence on them, but what's in that personality? What makes that personality up? And I'm talking about the elementals. I'm talking about their emotions and thoughts. That's what's really the PowerPoint, because the influence comes in, but if you get full of negativity, you're just going to feel agitated. But if you're a creative person, you'll feel inspired maybe. So it has an effect, but it's small compared to the effect of just the thoughts and feelings we allow ourselves to harbor and express.
And the archangels that you speak of, that's obviously, and everybody knows who they are. It's Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, right? So are they always with us? Like everywhere we go, are they there?
There's lots of them working in our bodies all the time. Those particular ones you mentioned don't really want to attune to the personality because we have impure feelings and thoughts. We have kind of a smell to them, Daskalos says. So they kind of step away, like if we were around somebody with body odor, maybe we wouldn't want to get too close. But their duty to us is perfect. They work in our bodies, keeping our metabolism. They're dematerializing cells, rematerializing cells. I think it's like 2 million cells a second. Are dematerialized and materialized, and that's one of their roles, is to oversee the function of that. Uriel coordinates all the others, but that's their job. So they love us. Of course, they love us. But the guardian angel is the most near and dear, and he's at one with us. He does attune to our personality and soul self. So he's with us as a protector and guide, and totally loving.
That's interesting, because a lot of the texts that I've read, they pray. Well, not really pray, but invoke or evoke the angels to help protect them. And I never thought of it was a bad thing to help. In fact, I remember telling you a story, and even Ramon in the chat room, about how I got the cat to come home by asking Uriel for help, and that's actually worked 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
it's amazing to me. And
it is amazing.
I feel kind of guilty afterwards, like maybe I always say thank you and stuff like that, but it's like I don't know why I'm feeling guilty, because Uriel's always there. I don't know. I shouldn't feel guilty about that kind of stuff, but I do, because I feel like Uriel's got better things to do than help me get the cat to come home.
Well, it certainly does, but one of the bigger things that you're shown here is that he's showing you that he's there.
Right, and I'm sure you can feel the love I have for the cat as well, so I'm hoping anyways. But I've definitely, since I've talked to you, I've definitely taken the red pill, but I'll have to admit that blue pill seems kind of nice, because this seeking wisdom and stuff, and talking to all these different people, Daniel, and there's so many different beliefs and so many different teachings and people that get polar about things, that if I was to really think about it and take it all in, my mind becomes extremely perplexed. And sometimes I feel like that book in Ecclesiastes where he tells you, the more wisdom I was seeking, the more sorrowful I became, and it's, I don't know, at some point I think you got to stop and just be,
Yeah, it's really easy, especially with the internet today, to get like this spiritual congestion. You get so much information, but that's why in our system, the teachings and the practices go hand in hand. They're like 2 legs that you need to use to walk forward. Just getting a bunch of knowledge, it just feeds your egotism at the end of the day, unless you do something with it, unless you start proving it to yourself, as I said in the early part of this thing about the pill. Unless you test it and prove it to yourself, it's just like you're a jewel collector and you have all these jewels you collected, but you're not living it. So the real important part is to start living it. You can't live it all, obviously, so you got to pick something. Pick what you resonate with.
Do you think that Krishna was real, or was that just a story too? I think Krishna was real. That's just my opinion.
I think there was a Krishna. I don't know that he was 12 feet tall and blue, but I don't know about that. But I do think that, God has always sent his prophets and enlightened ones to the planet to help us in every culture and every time. So the trouble is they become mythologized. So a lot of what we know of Krishna is, just could be a bunch of mythology that's been added on to maybe a real being, So it's hard to tell after so many thousands of years what it really was.
Yeah.
But even just like there's, you heard Pope John Paul II, right? Well, there was this Pope John Paul I back in, 1400s or something. And he was an orphan. And he wanted to know, who were my parents? So he went back to this town where he knew he was born, and he tried to find his parents. And in the process, he met a girl, and he fell in love with her. And they, I don't think they married, but they had sex and maybe even a child. And in the process, while he's living with her, he finally finds out who his parents are. And it turns out his parents were brother and sister. And that's why they put him up for adoption.
Oh.
And it keeps going on farther. And finally, he discovers this girl he's with is his sister. So he's just repeated the thing his parents made. And so he kind of freaks out. So he goes to this island in the Mediterranean, and then he does penance for all these years. And then he comes back, and he ends up being the Pope. Well, the story of him is that he went and he chained himself to a rock. He was found floating in a river in a basket like Moses. And they don't tell the whole story about the brother and sister thing, but he went for penance, and he chained himself to a rock in the middle of the ocean. Well, that's just a myth around this real guy who went to this island to try to sort out what had just happened to him. And yes, he was an orphan, but he wasn't found in a box. So people mythologize people after they pass. So it's hard to know on creatures like that.
I'm kind of being pulled to ask this question for more than just me. It's something I talked to you about during the break, actually. When I'm by myself, I can do and learn anything and become whatever I want to become as far as these teachings go. It's much easier if I lock myself in a closet and do it on my own. But when we have people that are in our lives that we can't necessarily get rid of, whether they're family or spouse or brother or sister, or father or mother, and they have this really negative impact on us, right? It's almost like they're sucking the energy out of you. And I've seen a lot of people call other people vampires and stuff just because they have their own insecurities. But what I'm talking about is, it seems like everybody I talk to either has this one, maybe two people in their life that is just really draining the positivity out of their life. And it's always, most of the time, somebody they can't just say bye to, somebody they can't just kick out of their life.
Mm-hmm.
How do we deal and cope with that?
Well, it's obviously they're put in our life for this very purpose. We want to run away from them. There's people that are so full of toxic elementals, or just let's call it negativity, that you just, when you're around them, you just want to run. You want to pry yourself loose and run out the door. Why? It's because these kind of people are really sucking your energy. They're taking that etheric vitality you need. They need it because they're burning theirs up with this negativity and the way just their, let's say, disposition. They burn a long quantity of it, and they need more. So they are able to get it from people if they can entangle themselves with them. So what to do? What to do? Well, the lesson's always the same. It's always the same, and that is they're here in our life so we can learn how to love them. Maybe we don't have to hang around them, but we should never not stop loving. We should try to love them for who they are right now, even though we maybe can't even talk to them or relate to them. They are here in our life to learn how to love. So it's easy to love someone that loves you, right?
Yeah.
But someone that's really, grinding you down, it's hard to love that person. Well, we're supposed to love everyone. That's the whole point. So they're some of our best people, and if you really think about it, don't these people need our love more than our friends?
Yeah, for sure. I've even asked myself in my situation sometimes, it's like, what did I do in my past life to deserve this? Like whatever I did, it must have been horrible. Because in my case, it's a person that I can't really just run away from. So it's
did you ever think
vamping,
Yeah, but did you ever think that maybe it's just the opposite of what you just said? That maybe at a soul level, your love was so great for this person, you volunteered to be in their life to try to help them?
No, I never thought of it that way.
Could be. A lot of people come into somebody's life and deal with the most horrible kind of people just because at the soul level, we all love each other anyway. So we're trying to learn how to do that at the personality level too. And we need those people that challenge us. They really are some of our best teachers. If we get caught and start fighting back and we just end up in a polarity with them, not so much, because then we're trapped. But if we can really pull that off, there's great advancement in that.
So just think of it more like a challenge on, I see what you're saying. Like, it's easy to love somebody that's lovable and that's very easy to love. Like my cat or my son, very easy to love. But this may take time and real effort. So it would be a great accomplishment. I see what you're saying. Because I've definitely gotten polar with them, and that did not work out.
It never works because you just feed the energy into the unhealthy dynamic. And that's really what we're going to be talking about in this seminar on love in Massachusetts in a couple of weeks. It's about loving. What's this mean? Well, like I said, it's so easy to love someone that loves you. So what's that? Well, that's ego, isn't it? Yeah. I love them because they love me. I love that person because they think of me the way I like to be thought of. You'll find parents that say, I love my children. I sacrifice so much for them. And the moment they don't do what the parent thinks they should be doing, their love evaporates. That's not love. Well, it's a love. We call it love by reflection. We love people who give us what we want, but it's not real love. It's just love by reflection. And I'm not saying relationships that fulfill each other's needs is not good, but one that's totally based on getting something from the other person that feeds your egoism, that's not real love. And what happens is if you find somebody that starts hating you, it usually means, it really always means that person is not getting their egoism fed as they expected to. Or we could say hatred is wounded love, maybe. But the point of it is they're not getting their egoism fed, so they turn on you.
Wow. I've just never looked at it that way. And you know what? If I was to do introspection every night like I should, I think everybody should practice this. Introspection is a practice where Daniel was talking about before. Do you do it before you go to sleep? Because that's when I usually do it. When I do it is I just think about the entire day and all of the things I did and said and all of the effects and causes of the day, and to try to, I guess, tell myself what I could have done better. And that really does help, instead of just falling asleep and letting it all go and then doing the same thing the next day and wondering why the same thing keeps happening to you.
Yeah, you start, from my own experience, you start, doing it at the end of the day. And the next thing you notice is that, wow, right after one of those events, you start doing introspection immediately, like, wow, that didn't go so good. What could I have said that would have made it better? Or what did I did that really agitated this person? How could have I improved? Then the next thing you'll know is while the thing is going on, you'll start to do introspection in the middle of the event. And then the final stage is you'll walk down the street and you'll start to see this person you have difficulties with or something, and you'll start to introspect on how this could go before you even start talking to them. So pretty soon, introspection is just ongoing thing all the time.
Yeah, I think I do that already. Well, we as far as like this person I'm around, I anticipate it before it happens. That's the frustration of it, Daniel. Even when I've tried so many things, but I guess I'll just keep trying, If I love them, then it's got to be worth it. It's got to be.
Yeah, but, some people you just can't be close to. It's like I was saying on the break. It's like really people in our lives are like planets orbiting around the sun. Each one has its own orbit. So sometimes you have some people you have to have a very distant orbit with them to keep the balance and harmony, because the planets are always in balance and harmony no matter what their distance is or what their size is. The laws of physics guarantee that there's always a balance there. That's why they don't go flying out into space. And it's the same thing with personalities. If you can find that proper balance, that proper orbit, that's great. Daskalos had these people in his neighborhood who were just, nobody liked them. They were just complainers, blamers. They were just really negative people. But Daskalos, he had the ability to know what was going on in everybody's mind and life in the neighborhood by his consciousness. And he knew that sometimes these people didn't have enough money to eat, to really buy food. And so, unbeknownst to them, he would sneak and put money in an envelope and put it under their door. And he did this for years, from time to time. All of a sudden, one day, these people, and they're these kind of people where nobody can get along with them because they're so negative. So one day, these people show up at his front door at the police. And they come in, and the police says, well, these people claim you stole something from them. Well, Daskalos said, no, and I didn't steal any from them. And as a matter of fact, I was been the one that's put this money under the door, and he gave the dates of when these people received the money. And the people just melted to realize that this was their benefactor, not someone who was taken from them.
Wow.
And they fell on the floor. One guy went down on his knees and said, please forgive me. He says, I don't need to forgive you. I love you. It's okay. It's okay. And they said, can we come and visit you? He said, it's better you don't. So it doesn't mean that they have to move in with us. It's just better. He didn't want to have contact with them. It was better that you don't. So sometimes we have people where we just, close family members, obviously we're tied to them a little bit more than neighbors, but we are tied a lot more to them than neighbors, but by the law of cause and effect. But you have to find a way. But sometimes it's just not to be around them too much. It's a better orbit.
Well, Daniel, I really want to thank you for spending time with us. We got just 2 minutes here left. And if you don't mind telling everybody how they can find your websites and your books.
The book and the online courses and the seminars are on thewhale.us. thewhale.us. The main website is researchersoftruth.org. We have free audio and there's a video and some written lessons on researchersoftruth.net. It's free, but you have to register to sign into the site. And then we have some free podcasts at researchers.podbean.com. researchers.podbean.com.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us again. I can't wait to do it again down the road. These conversations have always helped me, and I know for a fact they've helped my audience too. So it's been a real pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Joseph.
Absolutely. You guys, that's the end of the show. Don't forget, we're going to...
All right. So we got to roll out of here. Yep. So tomorrow night, Rock Castaldo will be on. That was our Daniel Joseph marathon after he came on live. Go check out the researchersoftruth.com and .org. Also, thewhale.us. Tomorrow night, Rock Castaldo. I want to thank all y'all in the Fringe FM chat. Pacho, Don, Eric Markham, Jeremy Scott, Amanda, Barbara. All of you guys, love you. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.